Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Bradburn. Alongside me is Logan Camden, and today we are going to be ranking the top 10 defenders in the NBA. But first, before we get into that, we have to talk about the big story that broke today. This was broken by the one and only Pablo Torre, who has been doing some unbelievable sports reporting, true investigative journalism throughout the summer, uncovering some really fascinating and important stories from the NBA, NFL, kind of from the dark side, the underbelly of the sports world in a lot of ways. And the story that he broke today was that Kawhi Leonard had been improperly compensated by the Los Angeles Clippers, who circumnavigated the NBA salary cap to pay him an additional $28 million above what was allowed through this company called Aspiration, who they were partnered with. And this was ostensibly an endorsement situation, but Kawhi in reality never had to make any sort of public appearance, never had to do any sort of promotion for the company. The only condition really was that he would only be paid as long as he was a member of the Los Angeles Clippers. So clearly a violation of the NBA salary cap rules, and we will see what the fallout is from this. But everybody go check out that full episode for a whole lot more details on all this, because those are just kind of the key bullet points. But Logan, what is your initial reaction to this news?
I mean, I think the big key is what you touched on at the end there. One, he didn't make an appearance for this company or anything. That's like the truly damning part. Pablo touched on this in an interview he did following up with Dan Patrick, but the real damning part for the Clippers and for Kawhi is the fact that he doesn't have an advertisement, or he didn't have an appearance. Like, if there was a breadcrumb trail of him, having appearances and doing things for them and earning this money through this company and appearances he has with them, there's not really any gripes that somebody could have, right? Like, if this is under the table, what I'm saying is the Clippers have a way out. They have an alibi. They have something that they could turn to and say, oh no, this wasn't just to get Kawhi extra money to make sure that he stayed with us and played with us, for however long this is supposed to be for, right? But it's not there, which just makes this whole same thing seem fishy. And so the two most interesting aspects of this to me are, one, what does the NBA do to punish the Clippers? Like, I personally think they should bring the hammer down. Like, this is collusion. I don't know if you can take it too far. I know you mentioned this, and we talk about this all the time, but the Joe Smith deal where they stripped the Timberwolves of a bunch of first-round picks and basically banished them to the bottom of the Western Conference for years and years, and it took them forever to get out of that hole. So I'm okay with whatever punishment the NBA brings down on LA. I think they should bring the hammer down to make sure this never happens again. I'm sorry for the Clippers, but I think you have to make an example out of Steve Ballmer in LA. And then two, the other most interesting aspect of this outside of the punishment is what the Clippers' defense is going to be. Personally, I think they're cooked. I don't really know what kind of argument you could possibly make to cover all this up, but those are the two most interesting aspects to me. But it's really stupid. I mean, this is just completely foolish by the Clippers, man. This is idiotic.
Yeah, I mean, you used the word fishy. I think it's so far beyond that. I think that the evidence is extremely clear-cut here, and I am obviously not a legal expert, so we'll see if there is enough wiggle room with just the legal vocabulary used in the contract. I don't know. To me, it's just so clearly an illegitimate situation, and Pablo does such a great job, and he talks to an inside source, somebody who was previously with Aspiration, and he revealed that, even when the company was in financial turmoil, the one payment that they were consistently always going to make was to Kawhi Leonard or to his LLC, the KL2 Aspire LLC, which didn't exist for any other purpose than to benefit from this company that, again, he never publicly supported or endorsed in any way. A company that Steve Ballmer was a big-time investor in and had given significant amounts of money to, that potentially just funneled right to Kawhi Leonard. So the evidence is overwhelming. I think that there is more than enough for the NBA to act upon here, and it's going to be really interesting to see what the punishment is, because I've seen some conflicting stuff about what exactly the CBA lays out as guidelines for a situation like this, but ESPN basically says that penalties can include fines up to $7.5 million, and then they can take your draft picks. They could potentially void contracts that were signed through illegitimate means. They could potentially deal out suspensions. So we'll see, because the Joe Smith situation is like such a strange comparison point, and there's so much that's changed since then. We're talking about an entirely different CBA now. We're talking about an entirely different commissioner, an entirely different NBA, and also very different circumstances in the sense that the Joe Smith situation, yes, it was underhanded. Yes, it was negotiated secretly under the table, and all of that is improper. I think this is worse, though. And I don't expect the punishment to be that severe, because I actually think the punishment for the Joe Smith situation was too severe. I mean, they ruined them as a franchise for the better part of a decade. They took 5 first-round picks. They suspended their head coach for a year. They suspended their owner for a year, I believe. I don't think we're going to see anything like that in the Adam Silver era. I just don't think he's that sort of, like, honestly strong, punitive leader that David Stern was, who he would really bring the hammer down. I'm not expecting that. But I do think using outside funds to compensate a player beyond what is allowed by the league is such a significant advantage that it cannot be allowed. And if this is only a financial penalty, that would be such a slap on the wrist. I mean, a $5 million fine to $175 billion net worth Steve Ballmer. I mean, that would be a joke for him to be able to keep Kawhi Leonard on his roster. I mean, not just considering the fact that this team is a huge personal priority for him, like literally that's bringing in more revenue than it's going to cost you, because Kawhi is a draw, because Kawhi keeps you so competitive as a basketball team. So it can't be that. I think it has to be at least 1 first-round pick. I think it could be multiple first-round picks. Like, I wouldn't be mad about it being 2 or maybe 3. Beyond that, I don't know, because again, I think that they went too far with the Joe Smith situation. That to me was too much, but you can't really allow this to go unpunished or to go without being significantly punished. And I do think it's going to be very interesting to see if any other information emerges about any other situations like this around the league potentially, because I do think that this is a unique one in the sense that Kawhi's Uncle Dennis, who was basically acting as his agent, was kind of like notoriously greedy and underhanded and like pushing for some improper benefits from a number of teams when they were trying to figure out where Kawhi wanted to go in 2019. And there was always kind of this weird stink around that situation. And so that's not the case for a lot of people. And also, like, if you are a homegrown talent and you're signing an extension with full bird rights, like, you can just make so much money as is that it's not like you necessarily need to replace that value elsewhere. Whereas Kawhi does come over as a free agent, then signs an extension, not having the full benefit of those bird rights. So I think maybe that's a component too. But like, one example that people have pointed to is Jalen Brunson. And look, I don't think we can just go willy-nilly speculating here, right? I think it's totally possible that he decided, I'm going to take a discount so we can build out a championship caliber team. I also know that by staying with the Knicks, I am going to more than make up this money that I'm willing to concede in legitimate endorsements because I'm in the biggest market in the country. Like, all of that is feasible. And also, it is not impossible maybe that something like this could be a component there as well. I don't know. Again, I don't want to speculate, but I am very interested in what's the fallout in terms of the league punishing this. How far do they take it? And then do any further dominoes fall now that there's sort of a microscope on this? Are we going to see any more situations like this? I honestly don't know. I don't think so. I definitely think that they would be few and far between, but it's not impossible.
A lot of people, and again, I can't put credibility behind this or like guarantee that this is the case, but a lot of people were saying that was the money that was made up from what he would have lost by taking an extension with Toronto. So a lot of people theorized that was the thing that ultimately got him to commit to the Clippers because he didn't want to give up on that money. Ultimately, I don't really think Kawhi should be punished. I think it's obviously under the table, but I don't know. It's so weird, though, because it's like, did Kawhi and his people push for this? Did the Clipper, like...
Definitely.
It's so
I think
strange,
they must have.
Man.
Old Uncle Dennis.
It's so weird. And no, I don't think they can just fine them, because a slap on the wrist is the good way to put it. He's the richest owner in the NBA. And so, like, the $30 million that he gave to Kawhi is like packing peanuts to Steve Ballmer. And then if you just take money from him, it's like, okay, I mean, how is that any different? Like, reaps all of the benefits from doing this underhanded stuff and there's no actual repercussions that are being enforced, I would take 3 firsts away. I would take the 27 first, I would take the 29 first, and I would take the 2030 first, and I would tell the Clippers at 2031 they can get their picks back. Like, I think it has to be severe, and I think it has to be swift. Because like I said, man, you got to kill the queen bee here. You got to cut the head off of the snake. Like, you have got to stop this dead in its tracks to scare people off from doing it. Like I said it earlier, man, you got to make an example, I think, out of the Clippers.
Well, and there's especially truth to that now that we do have this more stringent CBA, and it is more difficult to spend into the luxury tax, and it is more difficult. We have these second apron limitations, like more so than ever. Teams are limited in their ability to spend by the new cap rules. And so if they are not significantly disincentivized from trying to find any way around that, then it does seem likely that more teams are just going to try to do this. And obviously, it's a huge competitive advantage when you have a $175 billion net worth owner compared to a $1 billion net worth owner. And obviously, we're talking about obscene wealth in both of these cases, but nevertheless, there's a difference of $174 billion there. And so it is still totally significant when you have somebody with literally limitless wealth like Steve Ballmer does. That's an advantage. And the guy loves his basketball team, man, and clearly he wanted to take whatever measures necessary to build the best team that he could, but went too far, got caught on this one. And in terms of what will happen to Kawhi, that's an interesting question because Joe Smith, if I remember correctly, was not suspended. He wasn't punished in any way beyond the fact that the contract was voided. And by the way, the funniest thing about the Joe Smith situation is not just how horrible it was for the Timberwolves as a franchise because of the punishment. The fact that they wanted to give him the 7 years, $86 million to begin with is so stupid. So I guess they kind of made their own bed with that one, made their own grave. But in this case, Kawhi's contract that we are all talking about now is already up. Like, he's on to his next extension now. So I don't know what they could do in terms of voiding that, getting any of that money like back out of his hands. That doesn't seem possible to me. But again, I'm obviously not an expert on the legal issues with all this stuff. I'm very interested to see what happens here. It's such a different situation and such a different era for the NBA than the Joe Smith thing was. And yet that's like kind of the closest comparison in mind. Like, this is not something that happens often whatsoever. And I give a lot of props to Pablo Torre for uncovering it. And we will continue certainly to monitor this situation because it is very interesting and could be devastating, man. Like, there's a huge range of outcomes here where this could be slap on the wrist. But I feel like with all of the media attention that's on it right now, and with the fact that you just really want to set a precedent in this new day and age, this also could be like devastating to the Clippers' ability to build a capable team years down the line. Because we know they've already gone all in on this window, right? They want to be as competitive as possible. They've already compromised their future for that, but that future could be compromised even further. And probably will be to some extent, but could be really screwed depending on how hard Silver and the league comes down on this.
And just looking at the scope of this season, too, if there are, like, major repercussions, the Clippers went, like, on Kawhi specifically, like, if he had, a suspension or something like that, like, this is a team that is pretty much all in on right now and this year, considering, like, the state of their roster, like, all the moves they went out and made, Brook Lopez, Bradley Beal, like, this is an old-ass team that they push their chips back into the table, man. So, I mean, if they lost Kawhi or something, that would kind of send this season up in flames as it would, I mean, the next decade. It's, this is supposed to be the peak before we start going downhill if you're the Clippers. So, yeah, it's just foolish, man. I can't believe somebody was actually dumb enough to think that they could get away with this, man. Like, it's an unnecessary risk, and it's a foolish one.
Yeah, the whole situation is kind of ridiculous just because, like, basically this entire company was illegitimate. I mean, there's a whole lot of sketchy stuff surrounding them, but they are now in legal trouble. They've already gone bankrupt. Like, there's a whole world of fallout here that goes beyond the basketball world. But nevertheless, it is very significant in the basketball world as well. So I don't think we're going to see a Joe Smith punishment here. I don't think we'll ever see something like that again, honestly. It was so severe. But this is a big deal. This is a very big deal. Let's talk about some pure basketball, though, Logan, because we got to keep our rankings going. That's what summer's for over here at Nerd Sesh. We're ranking the top 10 defenders in the NBA today. And I got to say, this was a painful one. I mean, they always are. It's never easy for me to cut any of my darlings from any of these lists. But let's start, as we always do, with the honorable mentions. Who were some of those first guys off for you?
I had to cut a bunch of people I thought were going to be locks for my list.
Yeah, I'll just come out and say it too. I am totally guilty of referring to like probably 13 guys as top 10 defenders over and over again for the last year. I always talk about how it feels like there's like 12 top 10 players in the NBA right now. Apparently I have the same thing with defenders. So it's good sometimes to actually have to go out, rank them, get it all down on paper, and know who those 10 guys are because, yeah, there's a lot of monsters on the defensive end of the league right now.
There really is. I'm wondering if I went with the right guy in my 10 spot. There were 3 guys really competitive for it. My toughest cut by far, I think, was J-Dub. Dub is so versatile. He's so good at defending on the perimeter and on the inside. And, like, I thought he was a lock. I thought I was going to have 3 different Oklahoma City Thunder players on this list. And unfortunately, I think he is the casualty. He's versatility, like the ability to check quick guards on the perimeter, the ability to guard big bodies on the inside and legitimately disrupt them, the ability to protect the rim at such a high level. Like, it's a really, really rare combination to be that great at that size. You know, he's 6'5", but he's got a 7-foot-plus wingspan. So J-Dub was one of my toughest cuts. I think another one of my toughest cuts was Jaren Jackson Jr., who had a really good season. Ultimately, some of his rebounding limitations are the reason that I left him off my list. And then real quick, these other guys, Lou Dort is an honorable mention, Tumani Kumara, Herb Jones, and Jason Tatum. I think all of those guys are really good on the wings. And there's so many, man. I feel like we could have gone like 10 names deep on the honorable mentions. There's so many damn good defenders in the NBA today. But you can only go with 10, man. So, unfortunately, those guys had to get axed on my list.
I really would have liked to go 15 deep because my toughest cut was also my beloved J-Dub, who I know for a fact I have called a top 10 defender like actually countless times, and I apologize. I guess he's actually the 11th best defender in the NBA, but the guy is just so special. I mean, the elite hands, the insane length, 7'2" wingspan, the elite defensive IQ, one of the best rim protecting wings in basketball, held opposing players 11% below their average field goal percentage at the rim this year, which is an elite number, and like that's with some legitimate volume. I mean, he is a legitimately important backline defender for them, especially was in the little stretch of the year when both of their centers were out, which was only a handful of games, but like just such a versatile, high impact guy. Also a really good isolation defender, also has the matchup versatility to switch onto the post, to work against guys physically there, to front them, to push their catch points further out. You think about some of the matchups he was asked to take on in stretches, Triple J in the playoffs, Julius Randle, even a little bit of Nikola Jokic. These big, powerful players, like he has the ability to contend with his motor, with his length in stretches. And obviously part of the defensive framework there is a willingness to bring doubles with other guys and use their speed to cause chaos. But like J-Dub is the guy who you can put on those players and he can hold his own at an impressive level and just super active towards the top of the league in deflections. I love him. It just came down to the fact that there are 10 defenders who I would take over him. And I'll talk about him specifically compared to the guy in my number 10 spot, because that was a real debate that I had. Triple J, I think you laid it out. I mean, an elite rim protector and roamer, impressive switch ability, really, really destructive defensively in a couple of ways, and then just limited enough in other ways to keep him off my list, where he's not a good drop defender, he's a bad defensive rebounder, and so you have some issues with him anchoring your defense at the 5. He's not nearly as well equipped to do that as really all of the great defensive bigs who did make my top 10. And then still, the foul-prone stuff, like he just does give up some value there with some dumb, reckless fouls. He's very close, but ultimately just a little bit too flawed to make my list. Dyson Daniels, I really considered. I mean, the steals and deflections GOAT of this season, incredible there. Also a very good man defender. Also, like, good matchup versatility. I mean, really good size for being a guard. I just think there are guys who are ultimately more impactful as team defenders than him. The bar is crazy high here. Asar Thompson was a very tough cut for me because, spoiler alert, I've got his brother on this list, and I think they have so many similarities. I mean, they're both just these absolute freak athletes, and Ausar isn't quite the shot blocker or the rebounder that Amen is, but he's even better, I would say, at generating deflections and steals. He's every bit as freakishly twitchy, 6'7", 7-foot wingspan, right? Has all the crazy frame and athletic stuff there and has insane instincts and really impressive matchup versatility. The only reason he's not on my list, honestly, is I just think he needs to improve his discipline defensively a little bit. That was the one knock with him really all year defensively. 4.5 fouls per 36 minutes in the regular season. And in the playoffs, he averaged 6.7 fouls per 36. So there was this dynamic of like every time they were able to put him on Jalen Brunson, he was so clearly the best defender that they had for that matchup, and just such an incredible ability to pressure the ball and like smother guys athletically with his size, with his length, with his quickness, make some crazy recovery plays, still change direction at such a high level with these shifty small guards. But then also like Brunson was able to just exploit his foul proneness enough to where he couldn't play 30 minutes in that matchup. Like he just kept having to get sent to the bench because he was in foul trouble. And then he's also sending Brunson to the free throw line, which is his most efficient source of offense. So I still thought Ausar was really, really good in that matchup. I want to be clear, but that's just the one flaw that I would nitpick because we're totally nitpicking here. I've got a couple more, Logan, and then I'm done with the honorable mentions, but I just got to give all these guys shout outs. Jonathan Isaac was on my list last year. He is the only player who was on my list last year who didn't make it this year. And I understand you always have availability stuff with him. He just doesn't play that many minutes, but on a per minute basis, he's still one of the most impactful defenders on the planet. I mean, the stock numbers are ridiculous. Per 36, 2 steals and 2.6 blocks. Really impressive defensive versatility. Again, generating steals. Really excellent rim protecting forward. Really good defensive rebounding forward. He's a monster. I just thought this year, he wasn't quite as elite protecting the rim as last year. His man defense, his isolation defense wasn't quite as stifling. The impact numbers in terms of the defensive on-off dropped a bit. And the margins are just so slim here that was enough to drop him off my list. But he does still make a case. And then Herb Jones, I don't want to forget about, because he was, I think, the first guy off my list last year. And a lot of people were very upset about that. I had a certain Alex Caruso over him. Some would say that take has aged very well. But I don't want us to forget about Herb just because he was hurt for so much of this year and the Pelicans were so dreadful. I do think he is probably the best pure point of attack defender in the NBA. His length, the fluidity of his hips, his screen navigation with his really good size. When it comes to defending like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't think there's anybody who is better able to counter that shiftiness, stick with him, and provide really good contests. Like Herb is sensational there as that one-on-one defender. I just think when it comes to all-around impact, there are some better off-ball defenders. There are better rim-protecting wings, better rebounding wings, and those are areas where I just don't think Herb is bringing that same elite impact, but he does still make a case, because when it comes to just like put him on the best guards in the world, some of the best wings in the world, and ask him to stick to them one-on-one, I think Herb is literally as good as it gets. So, with all that laid out there, Logan, do you want to talk about criteria at all? I feel like it's pretty intuitive, but maybe just a quick overview before we get into your 10 spot.
I mean, by and large, I'd say archetypes do limit certain players from being higher on my list. Like, that's why a lot of the guys off my list are wings, because they're not rim protectors. And I think that versatility and being able to defend on the inside and outside, like if we did 2 separate lists, like perimeter defenders and interior defenders, like we could, but perimeter defenders just aren't nearly as valuable as interior guys and guys who can protect the rim, and I really do value that at a high level. So, I mean, basically all of the top of my list are all bigs, because I think it's the most valuable defensive position in basketball. I mean, outside of that, who's the best defender on the planet? I mean, I do think it is pretty straightforward, but that's the one thing I'd get out the way.
Basically agreed here. I would basically say that my criteria is just who impacts the game most defensively. And for the most part, that is going to be bigs. I do think we are in an age now where switchability is absolutely more important than ever before. The ability to contain dribble penetration is more important than ever before. I think that speed defensively is at more of a premium than ever before. I mean, we just saw one of the best defenses ever, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and their calling card above all else, I would say, even though they have elite rim protection, is their speed. It's their ability to wreak havoc, force turnovers, primarily with just the sheer number of great point of attack defenders and sort of chaos agents that they have there. So no question that is important, but nevertheless, the ability of a one defensive anchor big to be so impactful as a rim protector and deterrent, like that still is going to surpass overwhelmingly what even great perimeter defenders can do. Versatility does matter to me as well. Like there are certain players like an Ivica Zubac, who is a very impactful regular season defender when you can kind of keep him to his core scheme as a pure drop defender, very good rim protector, but just has major limitations in terms of his versatility. That keeps me from even considering a guy like him, or maybe a Kristaps Porzingis, who has some other issues, not as good of a rebounder as you, but like those are bigs who are elite at the pure rim protection, but are so deficient elsewhere that they can't be on my list. But it's always a balancing act. And so I can't lay out some exact formula of, oh, it's this much interior value, it's this much versatility. I just think it comes down to all around impact, which is sort of a combination of these things, but definitely am going to lean on bigs because throughout the entirety of NBA history, they're just the most impactful defensive players. The margin is smaller than it's ever been in terms of the difference between them and what a great perimeter defender can do, but it is still there. So, who is in your 10 spot, Logan?
You already brought up the guy in my 10 spot. I have Jonathan Isaac here. I'm not going to hold the fact that his availability issues or the fact that some of his offensive shortcomings, maybe limit how often he is on the basketball court, because that's the balancing act inside of itself with John Isaac. It's not unique to him, right? Like you see that with guys like Matisse Thybulle, Rudy Gobert to an extent in certain matchups. Like it's not unique to him, but he is super impactful when he's available. And on the court, I mean, the stock numbers are ridiculous. He averages 2.5 steals per game and 2 blocks per game per 36 minutes. The difference in defensive rating with him on and off the court isn't that big this year. It was just 0.7 points. But he still is an elite rim protector as well. He held opponents 11.6% below their average field goal percentage inside 6 feet. And it's the versatility and it's the defensive playmaking. I mean, he has phenomenal hands. Like, you'll see guys can't even bring the ball down on John. Like, they will have it 2 hands, and he'll just punch it out. He's so rangy. He's so agile, and like I like him as the drop guy in the pick and roll because he can guard both the guy with the ball in the hands and he can tag the roll man because he's so long. So he's good when he's involved in the action. He's also great, I would say elite as a help side guy. He can cover so much space. That's as a rim protector. That's also helping on drives or helping on pick and rolls where he's not even involved in it. And he's really good at staying vertical on contests too. And I wondered if it was worthwhile, like J-Dub, because he does play so much more, and if it was worth it. But I don't really think it makes sense to hold that against him. So I didn't, and I'm not going to hold the fact that he wasn't on the court as much this year. It's the same thing as it was last year. Like, he didn't get a ton of time. That's why we're using the per 36 numbers. But I'm not going to hold that against John Isaac. I think he's a problem defensively, and he's a better rebounder than a guy like Triple J too. I think Triple J is a better rim protector, but he doesn't have that kind of versatility or the defensive playmaking. So I know you said that you didn't think he was as impactful this season. Are you holding any of it against him that he is a sort of specialist?
No, I'm literally saying I think that his defensive level probably dropped by 5% from 2024 to this year, and that's enough to move him from wherever he was, 8 or 9 on my list last year to like 12, 13 on my list this year. I just think he was a little bit less destructive as a rim protector, as a help defender. I think that he was a little bit less outstanding in terms of his perimeter defense. But everything that you're saying is true. I don't have a problem with you having Isaac on this list because in terms of minute-to-minute impact, he absolutely makes a case. And I guess I should clarify that too. Like, there is sort of this duality to guys being specialists because I do think it's a fair question of like, do you reward a player for only having to play 15, 18 minutes a game, having very limited offensive roles and expectations? Like, that guy is kind of naturally just going to be able to dedicate more of his energy to the defensive end. So how do you sort of weigh that out? And honestly, the way I see it is like, what matters is how you are impacting the game purely defensively. So yes, it is natural that offensive players, even those who have great defensive ceilings, like, if you have a major offensive load, you're just not going to be able to be as impactful play to play defensively. Like Giannis is a good example. And I just think that that's the reality of it. So even though like a Giannis may have an insane defensive ceiling on a possession to possession, minute to minute basis, like he can get to that level, he's not there consistently enough for him to be a top 10 defensive player. So no, I don't hold that against Jonathan Isaac, even though I think it's a good question. It's just there's another guy who I prefer a tiny little bit, who I have in my 10 spot, and that's OG Anunoby. Logan, I don't know if he's going to be on your list, but I thought he was just at an outstanding level this season, and especially in the playoffs. This postseason, he was giving you 2 steals, 1.2 blocks per game. The stock numbers are very impressive in the playoffs. That's normally not really where he hangs his hat. He's not an elite defensive playmaker conventionally, but what he is really a one-of-a-kind man wing defender in the NBA today, where he's 6'7" with a 7'2" wingspan. He's 235 and strong as hell. And he's got this crazy ability to neutralize pretty much any strength-based wing guard, guys who are used to being able to give you a bump, go through you. Like, that's just not going to happen against OG Anunoby. But then also, he can really move his feet and can even stick to small guards in stretches. His matchup versatility is absolutely absurd. And you see that in the playoffs. Like, it's a small sample size, but these are all of the players who he guarded for at least 15 possessions. Cade Cunningham, I thought he did an outstanding job on him, right? Being able to just consistently absorb the bump, get out there, contest the mid-range jumpers with great effectiveness. Cade certainly couldn't get by him, couldn't get a step on him. So there was nothing easy, had to work for everything. And Cade shot 42% when guarded by OG. Pascal Siakam, now a totally different archetype, right? Add a couple inches of height. Now you've got this big sort of mismatch attacking power forward, and OG held him to 42% from the field. OG held Jason Tatum to 29% from the field. Jaylen Brown to 39% from the field. Right now you have these still big, strong wings. In Tatum's case, more prone to trying to create space for the jump shot, the step back, the side step, and OG was able to guard him at an extremely high level. And then you've got like a shiftier small guard like Andrew Nembhard, who shot 25% when guarded by OG. So again, these numbers are not everything because the sample size is small, but I do think that they definitely speak to his ability as a one-on-one defender to handle so many different high difficulty matchups at such a high level. And he's asked to do so much because this is a defense where there are a couple of glaring weak points in Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. And it's really interesting comparing him to J-Dub because they both have such clear like strengths over the other when you make that comparison. But the luxury that J-Dub has that OG Anunoby absolutely does not is having a Lou Dort, having an Alex Caruso, having even a Cason Wallace. These guys who can take on those really difficult primary matchups, that's falling on OG basically every time. I mean, sometimes Mikal will take it depending on the exact fit, but certain guards, that's OG. All of the elite wings, big forwards, that's OG's job. And I just think the range that he has there is so impressive. I also thought his off-ball defense in the playoffs was really awesome. He's not somebody who I think of as like one of the better rim protecting wings in basketball, but he was blocking shots. He was making defensive plays, saving points at the rim. Like he was making impact plays as a backline defender in the playoffs, just covering up a lot for a Knicks defense that was very flawed around him. And if you do look at some of the impact stuff, since he joined the Knicks, if you compare the minutes when OG is on the floor without Brunson to the minutes when Brunson is on the floor without OG, there is more than an 11-point swing in defensive rating, which I think just speaks to how much he is covering up for Brunson, how much better the Knicks defense can be when Brunson is off and OG is there as a core piece, and how much they desperately feel his absence when they have any group that is out there without OG on the floor, but especially when you have a liability like Brunson. So I just think always drawing the toughest matchup, always being asked to cover up for these glaring weak spots, and getting the Knicks defense to the level that it is at, being a solid defense, like that's really impressive to me. So J-Dub has the edge of being a better defensive playmaker, being a better rim protecting wing, I would say. And still, like, J-Dub is a super versatile defender. He's a really good isolation defender, but OG's ability to just consistently handle the highest difficulty matchups so well, I think is really unique. Like when it comes to being that big, strong wing defender on an island, I just think he's the best in basketball today. And then he's also still a very good off-ball and team defender, and that gets him on my list. He does have a couple limitations. He's a weak defensive rebounder for his size and position. And again, he's not a top-of-the-line defensive playmaker and rim-protecting wing, even though in the playoffs he was really, really good there. But a J-Dub would have an advantage over him there. But I think overall, I'm going to give OG the slight nod.
OG would be an honorable mention for me. I probably wouldn't have him above J-Dub.
Interesting.
He'd be right behind J-Dub for me. I do prefer
Interesting.
Dub's versatility to OG.
Man, but OG is insanely versatile. I mean, in terms of pure matchup versatility, as good as J-Dub is, OG is better.
I just mean he's not a rim protector like J-Dub can be, and that's like the. I think Dub's probably a better pick and roll defender than OG, but I mean OG was on my list last year, and he'd be one of the first 3 guys off. I don't have any issue with you having OG. I mean he's clamps, and I think the team thing is a really good point to make when we are talking about the difference, because it's like. OG doesn't really have a choice. Like, if OG took a night off, the Knicks are getting 140 pieced. You know, J-Dub could take a night off, and the Thunder maybe allow $110. You know, like, that is an excellent point. Like, he is the Knicks defense.
And, like, I still think it doesn't make sense that the Knicks defense is as respectable as they are. Like, that is all OG Anunoby to me, because they have such glaring flaws in their roster construction, and he's just the one guy who, like, can keep it all together like glue, man. I thought, especially in these playoffs, he just rose to a level where he was easily one of the handful of most impressive defenders in the playoffs.
OG, no Brunson, no Cat, 102.5 defensive rating. Brunson, Cat, no OG, 120.9 defensive rating.
That's an amazing stat. 18-point swing. So you really can't give the guy enough credit for what he's doing defensively there. The margins are very slim. I can't be mad at you leaving him off, but he is on my list. Who's in your number 9 spot, Logan?
I have a guy who's also really versatile and just great all around. I've got Alex Caruso here in my 9 spot, and Caruso's a stud. The bottom 3 guys on my list aren't. Actually, the bottom 4 guys aren't super impactful rim protectors. Isaac is, but the other 3 guys aren't nearly as much, and that's why they aren't higher.
And even Isaac isn't a primary
he's not a conventional.
Even though
exactly.
He does make a lot of big-time plays at the rim.
He's more of a help side kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so that goes back to the archetypal thing that I was talking about earlier, but Caruso's a beast. The guy is one of the most disciplined, ingenious defenders I've ever seen in terms of positioning and like where to be. And I think that can kind of get underrated when we're talking about defense, is just like IQ in position. I mean, that is like, to me, like 90% of defense is just knowing where the ball is going to be, where I need to be at to make a play. And Caruso's always there. Like, it doesn't matter where he's at on the court, he is going to get to where he needs to be to make a play happen, and he always does. If it's in transition, poking a ball out from behind a guy, if he's checking a ball handler and getting a strip, if he's switching onto a big man, like we saw him take on the Jokic matchup in this year's playoffs and win often. Was he being super physical? Yeah, but that's what the NBA playoffs are, and if they're going to let you do all that, go for it, man. Caruso, I thought, took all he could get. Like, the impact numbers are pretty huge, too, when you look at OKC. Like, Caruso has one of the biggest on-off defensive differentials of anybody on the team. They're 4.4 points better with Caruso when he's on the floor than off. Per 36, because this guy also is on a minutes deal, only plays about 20 to 25 minutes a game, depending on if it's regular season or playoffs, and that's at the absolute apex. But per 36 is giving you 3 steals per game and 1 block per game. He's one of the best guard defenders in basketball, and so I know some people may look at this and go, I mean, I don't know if what we're considering a men to be. If a men is considered to be a guard.
God, a superhero.
Yeah, maybe.
An alien.
Caruso's up there, though, and he's always just consistently impactful, man, and he can commit so much to that end of the floor, and that's where he's bringing 90% of his value, but he's a basketball genius. He's got an insanely high motor. He's a great defensive playmaker, and he is always always in the right spot. So the only reason he can't be higher is just because of archetypal limitations and some of the, transcendent stuff that guys higher on this list can be. But I think Caruso has to be here.
I have Caruso a couple spots higher in my number 7 spot because I think that he is literally as good as a 6'5" defender with normal length arms can possibly be. And I do think that he is not just the best defensive guard in the NBA today. I think he is one of the most impactful guard defenders that we have ever seen in the history of this sport. And what I would say is his ultimate calling card is that Caruso is the premier havoc wrecker in the NBA today. Like when it comes to just sheer disruption, there is nobody else on his level. When he's on the court, opposing teams turn the ball over more than 19% of the time. For reference, the league average is 14%. That's a huge difference. And obviously, OKC is the best team in basketball at forcing turnovers, but even their rate totally spikes when Caruso was on the floor compared to off it. In the regular season, if you look at all of the guys in the entire NBA who played at least 500 total minutes, Caruso led the league in deflections per minute, 6.4 deflections per 36. You mentioned the numbers over the regular season and playoffs. Per 36, this guy averaged 3 steals and a block. Like, he just has, first of all, the most psychotic motor, I think, of anybody in the NBA today. And again, we have this equation of like, okay, but he only has to play 20 to 25 minutes and he's exerting everything defensively. How much credit do you give him for that? I just think at the end of the day, there is nobody probably who plays more with their hair on fire 100% every single possession defensively than Alex Caruso. And I give him a shit ton of credit for that.
He plays what?
Oh, you're right. He doesn't have any hair. Excuse me. With his
he already
bald
burned
head
it all
burning.
off.
He already burned it all off, man. He singed it and then he fully burned it off. It actually makes a lot of sense. But it's not just the motor, right? I mean, it is truly next level anticipation and defensive IQ. I think about some of the plays that he made throughout the entirety of these playoffs, like literally preternatural anticipation, knowing where even an offensive genius like a Nikola Jokic is going to go with the ball, jumping passes that other people just don't dare jump. And then he's got these incredible hands and he can just take the ball from you. And he is so great at straddling the line of being, yes, very physical, but not getting called for a lot of fouls. And like, I really don't want to hear anybody complain and say, oh, Caruso shouldn't be on here. All he does is foul all the time. First of all, such a stupid point to begin with. And second of all, man, like, the reality is the reality. The impact is the impact. The game is officiated how it's officiated. And Caruso consistently is able to play how he plays without getting a significant number of foul calls. And I think part of that is because he is incredibly smart about when he is physical, right? He's more physical in off-ball situations. He's more physical when he's jostling for position in the post, when he's fronting. Instances like this in which you're much less likely to draw a foul call. Like, yeah, if you foul a shooter, obviously that is going to get called. If you foul a player with the ball in their hands, that's going to get called much more often. That's not where Caruso is at his most physical. And so I just think he has that incredible ability to be so aggressive and maximize kind of the risk reward that comes with that. It's just so special. So he's this destructive off-ball defender in a unique way where it's like, obviously he's not bringing upper echelon rim protection value even for like a non-big defender. Although I do think it's worth noting that like he is underratedly a very good shot blocking guard, averages a block per 36 over the last couple years. If you look at it, it's obviously not a big sample, but opposing players shot 12% worse than their average at the rim when contested by Caruso this year. So I do think he actually has even underrated value there, but that's not going to compare to a guy like his teammate J-Dub, right? Who's got a couple inches on him and more importantly has the 7'2" wingspan where he can make such an impact. But it is the ability to force steals. It is the ability to fly around in rotation. And it's just the ability to do the unexpected consistently that takes offenses out of rhythm. I just think he's so incredible at that. And then on ball, he has such ridiculous matchup versatility. Like for a player of his size, impossibly great matchup versatility, basically, because he is an elite guard defender. He's a great screen navigator. So like if you ask him to check a lot of the elite guards, he is one of the best options for those matchups. But purely on ball, he's not the absolute best, but still awesome there. But then he sets himself apart with his ability to guard bigger players in stretches. Like, if you look at the playoffs, and again, understand, we're talking about small sample sizes here, but when he was matched up with Nikola Jokic, per 75 possessions, he held him to under 20 points, under 5 assists, 4.7 turnovers, 49% true shooting. And yes, it's a small sample size with those numbers, but like if you watched, you understand that that completely changed the dynamic of the series when they went with that final counter, that best punch of putting Caruso on him, who was so exceptional at fighting for post position, who was able to, first of all, just like be so solid in the sense that he's got a low center of gravity. He's so physical. He's not easy to move, but he's so great at denying those entry passes. Like he was just blowing up everything that they wanted to accomplish. They couldn't get the ball to their best player because Caruso was smothering him. That is so supremely valuable. You look at their first round series. Again, he was like the ultimate punch that they could throw at Jaren Jackson Jr. We're talking about massive human beings here. And in that matchup, per 75, Triple J, when guarded by Caruso, under 14 points, 5.6 turnovers, 42% true shooting. Like, he makes it so hard to get the ball. You can't move him. If you bring the ball down, he's going to swipe at it. He's going to make a play. He's going to force a turnover. That is truly one of a kind from a player of his size in the NBA today. Like, it's so insane. And then what he was able to do to Tyrese Halliburton when he was guarding him, like forcing more than 7 turnovers per 75 possessions in that matchup. Also, Hallie was only averaging 12 points and 2 assists per 75. Like, the ability to make those huge game-swinging plays, to totally change the momentum of a game. If it's in just the versatility, the ability to throw any wrinkle at an offense and try him in so many different matchups, and then the ability to make those big-time swing plays with obviously generating turnovers, which turn into transition offense, which is so central to OKC's formula. Like, Caruso is absolutely the best of the best, and he just had so many signature moments in these playoffs. And that's where I've got to have him a little bit higher than this, because I think he completely changed the dynamic of so many games. I think him versus Amen is a very interesting conversation. We can get there, but I think that somehow even being a little bit smaller and not having the same length, like Caruso is even more matchup versatile because of the strength aspect of it, and also just because of the undeniable will and motor and IQ. And so I think he's even more disruptive. And I do consider him the best non-big defender in the NBA if we're counting Draymond as a big, even though in terms of height he is not. In terms of role, he is. Caruso is one of the great defenders that we've seen, and this was like his masterpiece this season, and especially this postseason. I was blown away consistently, even having such high expectations. Like, he was totally game-breaking on that side of the ball over and over.
This was his magnum opus.
It was. It was. I had him in my top 10 last year, Logan. People were pissed about it.
Yeah, they were.
People didn't get it.
They said that Josh Giddey and the Bulls won the trade.
Well, that's true as well. But, man, he has been doing this just for years, and the fact that he's now gotten to do it in a situation where he's within the best defensive infrastructure in basketball instead of Chicago, like, it's awesome, man. And he's a fucking championship player. He just makes championship plays over and over again, mostly on the defensive end. So
I can't believe
a couple spots higher.
I can't believe you've got him behind Amen, though.
Well, we're going to talk about that when we get there. In my number 9 spot, Logan, I have Bam Adebayo. And I think you got to give Bam a lot of credit as just one of the most consistently elite defenders that we've seen in this era. The Heat have been a top 10 defense for 5 straight years. And I think that Spo deserves a lot of credit for that, just being the best defensive coach in basketball in terms of scheme, variety, mixing in zone, like all these things that he does, just coaching up discipline, getting peak effort out of his guys. He's awesome. But Bam is the key on the court to them being that consistently one of the better defenses in basketball. And of course, his greatest strength is that he is the most switchable center in basketball. And it's really not a conversation, although I guess actually he played a lot more power forward this year, but the most switchable big in basketball, regardless. He was a 92nd percentile isolation defender this year. Okay, this is
I couldn't put him above
Dre, I guess.
I know, that's the thing. When we say big, it's like I'm will definitely say Dre.
All right, well, Dre's 6'5", 6'6", and I know I literally just said I consider him a big because of role, but I'm talking about actual big-ass human beings now. 6'9" plus guys. Bam Adebayo is the absolute best. And I think that you really just got to hammer home what a superpower that is for a defense when you can switch a big onto even like very good offensive guards and you basically concede no advantage. That's huge for the defense because this is what makes switching the ideal counter if you can pull it off, right? You're not conceding any of the advantages that are baked in to traditional coverages. You're not having to put two on the ball by coming up to the level or blitzing. You're not having to give some of those bread and butter options out of drop coverage where maybe they can get to a comfortable pull-up three or a floater or they can find the lob to the roll man. Like if you can switch and the big can guard at an extremely high level on the perimeter, then nothing has been gained for the offense, at least that the big is responsible for. You know, maybe your guard can't switch on to their big and guard him in the post, but that's an entirely different equation. Bam's got nothing to do with that. He's doing his job at the highest level of anybody in basketball in terms of switching. And then also, really good man defender when it comes to dealing with like the big, powerful forwards. I consider him the best Giannis defender in basketball. I think he's done some really impressive stuff against him just with his ability to move his feet super well, stay in front, but then also absorb the power where, yes, I mean, he's got this incredible fluidity in his hips and agility for his size, but big, strong base, 255 pounds, like very rare combination there. And also, he's just so sharp in his defensive execution. Like, he's got an elite defensive IQ. He excels working on the glass, box outs, like doing all the little things. Bam is so damn good at defensively, and he does have versatility in the sense that he can play the 4 and the 5 for you on that side of the ball. He's just really the glue for this very consistent, good Miami defense. The reason I don't have Bam higher than this is that we talk about the importance of rim protection, and Bam is as good as a defensive big could be with being as mediocre a rim protector as he is. And this has always been Bam's limitation, even as an elite defender, which he's been for a number of years now. Like, the guy is 6'9" with a 7'1", 7'2" wingspan. So he just doesn't have close to the physical measurables of these elite rim protectors. He doesn't have the deterrence. He doesn't have the same impact as a drop defender. That stuff is very valuable. And Bam is just operating at a disadvantage there in terms of size. And this year, the numbers were the worst that they've been. Opposing players shot 67% versus Bam at the rim. That is better than the league average field goal percentage at the rim, which is insane because any center, any decent center, just by the nature of being the biggest dude on the defense, you're expecting to hold players below their average to some extent. Really disappointing from Bam there. This is also crazy, Logan. Do you know how many shots Bam has blocked in the last 2 postseasons combined? Take a guess.
What's the game sample size here? What, like 2 series? 10 games?
That's 2 series. Yeah, I believe it's 10 games, right?
I'll say
9 games.
Say he blocked 9 shots. Won a game.
He's blocked 1 shot. He's blocked 1 total shot.
In 9 games?
In 9 games. This is the thing that I think some people overlook when they talk about Bam as though he does make a case for being the best defender in basketball, because they look at him and they say he's the most switchable center. That's so extremely valuable. And it is. But you cannot ignore that at the most valuable thing any defensive big can do, he is not just like a level below the rest of his peers, these elite defensive bigs. He is like multiple tiers below them. And he's actually regressed there. So that's where I have dropped him a little compared to last year. I also think maybe the increased offensive load has caused him to take just a little bit of a step back. But like I said, he's pretty much as good as a defensive big could be while being the level of rim protector that he is. The only other little criticism that I would make about Bam's defense is he's not an elite post defender. And this, again, is a product of size. I think about, like, what Jokic was able to do to him in the 2023 finals. And Jokic destroyed everybody in that playoff run, right? Rudy Gobert in Minnesota. Anthony Davis and the Lakers went up against some really great defenders and just torched them all. But that being said, I mean, if you compare what he had to go through against the Timberwolves, right, he was not as efficient there. Even against the Lakers, it didn't come as easy. Against the Heat, it was literally just like too much power, too much size, able to go over the top. And that's where there are guys who, again, just by nature of being taller, having more length, are more impactful post defenders than Bam. So maybe people will be upset about this just because Bam has so consistently been a great defender. He's still in my top 10. He's awesome. It's just, I think about an Alex Caruso. And even though he's not a big, I legitimately think he was more destructive. I think he was more impactful defensively in his minutes this year than Bam was.
So I have Bam in my 8 spot. People can be mad at me too. 3 things.
Solidarity.
One, the Caruso point, I would kind of make a similar case with what we were saying about OG and the Knicks. Bam, to me, is kind of the entire defense for Miami. Like, I like Khalil Ware, but I don't really think the personnel around him is super hot. 2, I think you make a great point with the offensive load creeping in and making him less of an impactful defender. Some people might get mad at that, but I do think it's a very important point to make because it just hinders him. And the third thing would be, I think some of what – I hate being negative with players, but, like, I think some of Bam is reputation-based. And what I mean by that is that he went to 2 NBA Finals where he was the best defender on those teams, but he didn't have that kind of offensive load that he has now. And I still think he's riding a little bit of that. And I don't want to, like, use that to, like, take away from the – that's a reason that we – going to 2 finals and being that impactful on those 2 runs is a big reason why he has established himself among the best defenders in the league. But – you know, it's not 2020 anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's different. And then the thing you said about the rim protection, I mean, that's why he can't be higher. Like, literally everyone above him is just a better rim protector. Like, it's not really arguable. So that's why Bam is also lower on this list than I think a lot of people would have him. I think he's a really good defender, but there are guys I do think are more impactful.
Yeah, I think that if you do look at, like, 2020, Bam was a better rim protector at that point. Again, he's never been one of the upper echelon rim protectors, but he has taken a step back there. Nevertheless, I still think Bam is really good. I think that Bam overall has maybe gotten a little bit underrated this past year, a little bit forgotten about, and he had such a rough offensive start to the year. But I do feel like you said it, man. I mean, the reputation defensively for him is so great. And I just think the results this year were maybe not quite up to the caliber of his reputation. Nevertheless, he's still got to be in my top 10 because that switchability from a center is one of a kind. I don't want to keep yapping here nonstop, Logan. I have Amen Thompson in my 8 spot. Where do you have him? Maybe you could give your Amen spiel.
I have him in number 7.
Okay. So why does he land there for you?
Well, I think Amen is the total package, and I have rarely seen – Amen has the potential to be one of the best wing defenders, like, ever. Yeah. And one, everybody always talks about Amen's physicals, and I will, but he's brilliant. Amen is so fucking smart. Like, it's just so weird that he's this young and this genius. Like, he just is always where he needs to be. He is a transcendent off-ball and help defender. He has incredible basketball instincts. And when you take those instincts and you combine them with the most elite physical traits I have seen in a basketball player, you get the freak that is Amen Thompson. He is, well, I was going to say he's 1 of 1. He's 1 of 2, but he's...
I always do it. I don't care. I still always say one of a kind because I just can't believe there's 2 of them. There just shouldn't be possible.
It shouldn't. It is absurd. Like, a guy will beat one of Amen's teammates off ball completely to the rim, and then, bam, you blink, and like the flash, he is at the rim, and he is, off the glass. He is pounding it. Transition. He is coming down, and a guy has a massive runway.
Pounding and coming down on him. Hello.
Hold up now. Hold, brother.
I'd be honored, personally, if he did that to me.
Amen just... He does stuff that I've never seen before. It is routinely in the game, like chase down blocks out of the pick and roll. Like, there are plays where if you pause a frame of some of his defensive highlights, Amen won't be in the frame. And then 2 frames later, he's there, and he is making the play. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then the defensive playmaking numbers, these aren't per 36. This is just raw. 1.4 steals per game, 1.3 blocks per game. He was an actual great rim protector for the Rockets last season, mostly on the help side, obviously. But he held opponents nearly 10% below their average field goal percentage inside 6 feet. For reference, he's 0.1% below Rudy Gobert inside 6 feet in terms of what he did this last season. And so you have an elite off-ball defender with great instincts who can make defensively when his guy doesn't have the ball. He can check superstars with the balls in their hands, like you saw what he did to Steph Curry in the playoffs. Obviously wasn't the entirety of the time Steph ends up getting injured, right? But destructive in that regard on ball. And then is also a great rim protector. Like, he's the total package to me. The combination of IQ and physical abilities is something that I don't know if I've ever seen in a basketball player before. And real quick, we were talking about it earlier, but like the thing between him and Caruso, I think Caruso is probably smarter and has better position. Like, he's just a veteran. He's played more basketball. I think he's got a higher IQ. It's Amen's physicals that put him over the top to me and why I have him above Caruso. Like, I just think that Amen can do stuff that Caruso just couldn't dream about. But it's close between the two. I do prefer Amen, and he is the highest rated wing/guard on my list.
I get it, man. And I actually went back and forth between these two a couple times. And also, I would just say this is probably the closest of any list for me. Like, legitimately, I knew my top 2 guys were going to be, and then 3 through 8 to some extent, like, it was in flux. Like, I knew ranges for guys, but it's really close, and I have no problem with you taking Amen. And like you said, and like I'll say, even though, yeah, he does have a twin brother who is a fucking freak as well, but like, being a one-of-a-kind athlete, being one of the absolute greatest athletes to ever play this sport allows Amen to do a lot of one-of-a-kind stuff. And as you laid out, I mean, the rim protection value that you are getting from a wing this year is absolutely absurd. In fact, he was the only player this year to average 1.3 blocks and at least 1.3 steals per game. So incredible defensive playmaking value there, and great matchup versatility when it comes to him taking on a variety of assignments. He is one of the top tier point of attack defenders in basketball. Makes a case for being the best there. He can guard the twitchiest, most explosive small guards as well as anybody. This is a 6'7" guy with a 7-foot wingspan, and his screen navigation is so great. And I was talking about this with the SAR, but like, both these guys, they can just extend themselves out. They can apply so much ball pressure. They can pick up so far out. And then they have such an incredible ability to recover, make insane plays with their athleticism and length and chase down blocks and whatnot, as you mentioned, but also just get back in position so quickly, overwhelm you with their size, take the ball from you. I've never seen anybody do to Steph Curry what Amen Thompson did in Game 5 in that first half, where he took the ball from Steph 4 times. Like, it was just absurd. And this is another guy with a nonstop motor. I mean, it's not quite Caruso, but that being said, Amen has to play 33, 35 minutes a game, where Caruso is playing 20 to 25. So in terms of people who play as much as Amen does, he might have the best motor in basketball. He's certainly on my first team all motor on both sides of the ball, just nonstop, willing to do whatever it takes to win. And I did think the job that he did on Steph was so impressive in the playoffs. He's up there for the best Steph defender I've seen. Like, he's absolutely on that short list. He held him when they were matched up to 17 points per 75 possessions, 2.5 assists against 4 turnovers on 59% true shooting. And that efficiency is still solid because he's Steph fucking Curry. But the ability to force more turnovers, limit the volume, the ability to stick with him consistently, again, getting around screens, get up in his space, be physical with him, have those insane athletic traits. It's just so ridiculous. Like, when you compare what Steph was able to do to Fred VanVleet, who was his other primary matchup, I mean, he absolutely fried him. And Amen was able to offer legitimate resistance, give him much more trouble. That ability is so crazy. And then he also does have the ability to guard bigger wings. The only thing that Amen has to add to become the fully realized version of himself is just a little bit more strength to me, because he is solid defending the post. I mean, again, it just comes down to the insane athleticism. We talk about one-of-a-kind plays. I was going back and rewatching Amen film, and there's this one play where he's guarding Mobley out of the post. Mobley hits him with a drop step, gives him a bump, rises up, full extension, trying to like put this little push shot over him. Amen takes the bump, straight up vertically jumps, and blocks it. This is a 7-footer full extension, and Amen is able, while being knocked backwards, to rise up.
What's Mobley's wingspan?
7'4". 7'4" wingspan. Like, how high this dude got in the air instantly. It's unbelievable. Nobody else does shit like that, and he does. So, like, that allows him to still be solid defending the post again. But when I do compare him to other guys who are in this, like, wing size range, Draymond, Caruso, like, even a J-Dub, I think, is actually better at this by a decent margin. Like, guys who are able to get low as hell, low center of gravity, strong ass base, like, that's so important. Fighting for position there, not letting guys move you. That's where you can move Amen. And he can still make some crazy plays with his athleticism, but that's one of the reasons that I do favor Caruso. I think that ability to guard up, again, somehow is actually even more impressive and valuable with him. It's a different team infrastructure, but I don't think that Amen could have been as annoying, could have been as much of a challenge for Jokic to deal with, for a Triple J to deal with. Not to the same extent that Caruso was, and that matters to me. But, like, Amen makes it up in other ways with the rim protection, with insane transition defense. Caruso's insane there, too.
Elite rebounding, too.
But that's what I was going to say, elite defensive rebounding for a wing. So those are pretty clearly the top two non-big defenders in the NBA to me. But I do think, like, there's this sort of unquantifiable IQ with Caruso and just this aggression. And both these guys are aggressive, but it is to a different level with Caruso. That's where I think so many game-swinging plays, I've just seen it so many times in so many different matchups, I am going to give him the slight edge, even though it's like, if you're just going through traits in a vacuum, yes, Amen checks more boxes. And like you said, I mean, physically, he can do things that Caruso can't. But I also think Caruso just thinks to do things and does things that nobody else on the planet does. And that is such a special ability of his. I think that he makes offenses more uncomfortable. I think he takes them out of their element, takes away their ability to do what they want to, takes away their certainty in their scheme, in their approach, more so than any other perimeter player in basketball. And that's why I do slightly lean Caruso. But again, I went back and forth with these two guys myself. So I have Amen 8. I have Caruso 7. You have Amen 7. Who's in your 6th spot, Logan?
I've got Rudy Gobert here in my 6th spot.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, why is that?
I don't know where to put Gobert on this list, man. I really don't. I don't know what to do with Rudy Gobert. I think Gobert can sometimes be like the butt of the joke too often, where the pendulum is swung almost too far in the other side, where every time in the playoffs, Gobert is this punching bag. He is this goober. And don't get me wrong, I'll laugh at Rudy Gobert offensively all day long. He is a deer on ice skates. He is uncoordinated as they come when it comes to putting the ball in the basket and playing offense. But then I feel like it gets overblown defensively when they try to act like they act like he's Big Zoo on the perimeter. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to Big Zoo, but Big Zoo is not a good perimeter defender. You do not want that man on the perimeter whatsoever. They act like Gobert's Mark Eaton out there. Gobert can actually move a little bit and actually defend on the perimeter. It just so happens that he's got, a myriad of lowlights, like Luka during their finals run, hitting that big three over him to call game. Like, I think that gets overblown more than anything else about Gobert, and I think it's a big misconception. I think he's taken a little bit of a step back from where he was at, like, defensive player of the year level as a defender. I don't think he's what he was 5 years ago, but he's still an elite rim protector, an elite rebounder, and he is still effectively a one-man defense. He improves the Timberwolves defense by 5.3 points. And I mean, without them, they're just not good. Like, he makes up for so many holes, and I feel like you could just drop him in a myriad of different situations, and he immediately improves their defense. That's where most of his value is coming from. The issue that I come into with Gobert is he is this elite rim protector. He is an elite rebounder, but, I mean, he's not as switchable as any of the guys. Damn. I don't know. It's like he still does bring that unique rim protection value, but he is, even though I think some of the perimeter defense stuff gets overblown, he isn't as switchable as some of the guys higher on my list. It's this balancing act I'm trying to find with Gobert, man. Like, he so clearly deserves to be on this list, and I just don't know how high. I think I got him in the right spot, though, man. I mean, I've got guys who are more switchable than him. I've got guys who are better rim protectors at this point in their careers than him. And I've got one guy that I just still think brings more all-around impact and value than Gobert at this stage in his career. So Gobert's fallen a little bit from my list last year. I still think he is an elite defender, but I don't think he's going to crack my top 5.
Look, it's all subjective in this range, but I do have Rudy a few spots higher. I actually have him at number 3 on my list. And I thought that this was another really impressive defensive season from him. I mean, obviously, he wins Defensive Player of the Year last season, 2024. And this year, I thought had a really outstanding defensive postseason. That's where I think he kind of had his signature moments of the year, but always is going to be absolute top-tier rim protector in basketball. I would say a top 2 technical rim protector, just when it comes to verticality, positioning, defensive IQ, all this stuff. He is so sharp. And then he also has these insane physical tools where, like, this guy is 7'1" with a 7'9" wingspan, one of the longest ever measured. And so there's this insane element of his ability to be so effective contesting people at the rim with that combination. He holds opposing players 10% below their average field goal percentage at the rim, but then also with the sheer size, with his reputation as interior defender. Like, he's a top 2 rim deterrent when it comes to just keeping people from even trying him there, which I do think is so valuable. He's an elite drop defender. In fact, I will say he's the best drop defensive big in basketball. He's a very good defensive rebounder. And as always, like, he is underratedly switchable. I'm not going to disagree with you. I think all of the other bigs basically who we're talking about, maybe with one exception, are more switchable than Rudy from this point forward, the guys who we're talking about. But his ability to move his feet is underrated. His discipline is very good when it comes to, right, understanding when not to bite on fakes, changing direction. I think he's underrated. I understand there's a couple of clumsy moments there, but overall, for being as massive as he is, like, I've talked about this before, but if Victor Wembanyama, some of the plays that he has defensively where he's out in space and he stumbles a bit, like, if those were Rudy Gobert, people would be laughing at those as lowlights. And nobody ever talks about them with Wemby because everybody loves Wemby, and people, like, ignore Gobert's incredible moments switching and highlight the couple times where, like, he does have a rough moment because he's Rudy Gobert and everybody hates him. But as I always say, they hate him because of his offense. Maybe they hate him because he started the COVID-19 pandemic. Maybe they hate him because he's kind of an obnoxious French guy. But none of this has anything to do with his defense.
I thought that was Tom Hanks, man.
I'm sorry, you're right. That was Tom Hanks and Rudy Gobert working in tandem, starting the pandemic. So I get it if you don't like him for that. But defensively, man, one of the best we've ever seen. And if you need evidence of, like, the fact that his switchability is underrated, just look at the Lakers series from this year, in which Minnesota deliberately went switch heavy, and Gobert was repeatedly asked to guard Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Austin Reeves on an island. And those 3 players combined, when guarded by him, shot 18 of 55. They shot under 33% from the field combined. The Lakers' big 3 offensively. And most of that is Gobert guarding them off switches on an island. Like, he did that at a very high level. And it wasn't just the fact that these guys were shooting low percentages when guarded by Gobert. It's also the fact that they were able to, like, force this Lakers offense into this isolation-obsessed lull where they're thinking, okay, I've got an advantage here, right? Luka is obsessed with the idea of trying to cook Gobert whenever he can. He wasn't successful doing it in this series. He was actually more successful than the other two, but overall, it led to this sort of stagnant offensive approach. These guys weren't creating as much for their teammates, and they ended up just like taking a lot of tough jumpers. That's what happens a lot of the time against Rudy Gobert off switches. Sure, sometimes you can create some space, right? Get him stumble a little. Get a nice clean step back off. But a lot of the time, he moves his feet pretty well, and you end up trying to shoot over top of this 7'1" guy with the 7'9" wingspan. And that's hard to do. Like, you even saw that with SGA in that series when Gobert outright got switched onto him. SGA didn't have a ton of success. There was a lot of SGA kind of settling. And if you get that, that's a win for the defense. So that's schematic versatility on display right there. Like, I'm not going to say that Gobert has A+ schematic versatility. There are guys who are better there, but it is pretty good. And you look at that series against the Lakers, Minnesota won mostly because of their defense. And that was mostly because of Gobert. And not just the sheer rim protection, but also the ability to play multiple coverages, to switch. I thought that was one of the more impressive defensive series you'll see from him. Really, really impressive stuff. So I basically have no knock on Gobert's defense. Like, the only thing I would nitpick is lack of elite switchability. But again, it's better than he gets credit for. And a little bit of a step back as a rim protector this past year, maybe, or just over the last couple years where he's gone from, that all-time great level, clearly best in the league, if you're talking about around 2020, 2021 with Utah, to now just being clearly one of the 3 best rim protectors in basketball. But he's still insane there. Like, he's just exceptional. And you mentioned the impact stuff is crazy. Like, the only reason I have Gobert at 3 is because I think the top 2 defenders are just that insane. They're just that complete. But yeah, he's a one-man defense, and the guy's just incredible. And the fact that he's been doing it defensively for this long and has gotten as little credit as he has, and obviously he has 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards, but he also gets shat on more than like any other notable player in the NBA. I was going to
ask you, I mean, on that, do you think Rudy Gobert is like a top 5 to 10 most polarizing NBA player ever?
Yes, I think so. And let's just say, Logan, I'm working on a video essay that may talk about Rudy Gobert a little bit, and a little something called aesthetics bias, where people watch a guy like him on offense. They say he's unskilled, he's uncoordinated.
Instead of that boy nice, it's that boy putrid.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, Logan, the sport's not about
I don't care about
necessarily.
looking sexy. I care about being effective.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm working on a whole video about this topic, so I've got a lot to say that I won't spoil here. But this list is about effectiveness. It's about impact. And there is no denying, if you are looking at it with objective eyes, that Rudy Gobert is one of the most impactful defensive players to ever play and is still one of the most impactful best defenders in the NBA today. So, with all of that Gobert discourse out of the way, everybody's favorite, I am going to reveal my number 6, Logan. And I don't know how you'll feel about this. I don't know how the people will feel about this. I don't know how I feel about this. This guy was the hardest player for me to rank this year on this list. I have Evan Mobley at number 6. What do you think?
I've got Mobley at 2.
Whoa. Wow.
I mean, Mobley's the... I'm doing a podcast with Batman. Mobley's the reigning defensive player of the year. Like, he's a really good rim protector. I won't say he's the elite of the elite. Like, he's not Chet. He's not Wemby. He's not AD. But he's damn good there. He's super switchable and really strong. I really trust Mobley to take on lead wing matchups. And I still think he is ultimately being hindered by the fact that he isn't playing the 5 spot when I think the Cleveland Cavaliers defense is actually going to get better, and the team's probably going to get better when they move him full-time to the 5 spot. So I think he's really switchable. I think he's a really damn good rim protector, and he's got elite physicals along with being a great rebounder and defender. But this is crazy, man. This is like disowning your child, Carson.
No, it's not. No, it's absolutely not. First of all, there is still no bigger advocate for Evan Mobley in the world than I. In fact, I'm wearing my Cavs shirt today, okay? I love him more than I love anybody who I've ever actually met in person, and I dream about him every night. And I've got 1 million Evan Mobley plushes along with my Geno Smith plushes, and I value them more than anything. Yeah. Evan Mobley means the world to me. Like I said, though, he was the hardest player for me to rank this year because, ironically, even though this is the year that he won Defensive Player of the Year, it just was not as great a defensive season as the year before, 2024. Like, he was just defending at a higher level a year ago than he did this season. And I think that he took a little bit of a step back as a rim protector. Between the regular season and playoffs combined, he held opposing players like 8% below their average field goal percentage at the rim this year. The year before, that number was at more like 11, 12%. And particularly, there was a difference in the level of dominant postseason defense. Because 2024, Evan Mobley was ridiculous defensively in the playoffs. Like, out of this world rim protection. One of the two best rim protectors in those playoffs, I would say, with Chet Holmgren. I think those guys were just the two best defenders in the 2024 playoffs also. But it's not just that he was so great as a rim protector. He also guarded Paolo for extended stretches. And Paolo shot 32% from the field when matched up with Mobley and also had high turnover numbers. He guarded Jason Tatum for extended stretches, and Tatum shot 37% when guarded by Mobley. Like, he was unbelievable. He was very arguably the best defender in those playoffs, and you just got the best of everything, man. The elite rim protection from this guy who's 7'1" with a 7'4" wingspan, so gifted there, but also the fact that he has this really unique switchability and actual matchup versatility where he is a big who you can put on these big wings and he can move his feet with them at a really high level out in space. Like, he is crazy agile, fluid hips, change of direction, so impressive for a guy that size. And then he also has the ability, obviously, to affect them with his length and get really good contests on jumpers. And then he also has the strength to, like, absorb those bumps and stick with those guys. Like, he could do it all defensively. And that's absolutely within him. I mean, he's that level of talent. This is why I've always viewed him as a guy who's going to win Defensive Players of the Year. I viewed him as clearly the best prospect in his class. Also, I realized that I said he was 7'1". That's a little bit of an exaggeration. He's like 7 foot, maybe 6'11". But still crazy when you consider the size, the fluidity of it all, the defensive versatility. I just didn't think that he reached that same defensive level in these playoffs. In either way, honestly, in terms of like dominating in those high difficulty matchups like he was doing in 2024 or bringing that same level of rim protection. And overall, in the second half of this year defensively, I just thought that he let up and he wasn't up to that same like elite stifling top 4 level that we had seen from him over the last year and a half and maybe even beyond that. I mean, since he came into the league, Mobley had been such a defensive force, but I pulled these numbers when we were talking about Defensive Player of the Year because I actually thought that Mobley didn't deserve the award, even though I'm thrilled that he got it because I love him so much. Like, again, he took his foot off the gas a little bit defensively down the stretch of the year. Before January 1st, the rim protection was incredible. He was holding opposing players 13.5% below their average field goal percentage at the rim. After January 1st, that number dropped to 4%. Really going from an elite number to a solid number. Before January 1st, he was allowing 0.74 points per isolation. I mean, that is elite isolation defense. After January 1st, he was allowing 0.96 points per isolation. It's not a very good number. So I just think his level dropped a little bit from last year. And I think part of that is probably him taking on a bigger offensive role this year. So this is where I struggled because, like, I know that at the end of the day, he still has this ridiculous combination of elite switchability where, like, outside of Bam Adebayo, there is no true big who is better in terms of switching. There is no true big who is asked to defend more isolations off switches than Evan Mobley, and he is so damn good at it for all the reasons I mentioned. The ability to take the bump, stick with guys, move his feet, all of the length that he has. Like, it's so great. And then, obviously, like, the separator for Mobley is the fact that he is a very good rim protector, where Bam, as we talked about, is mediocre there. And Mobley's got great technique. He's got great discipline as a rim protector. He's got the 7'4" wingspan. So that combination is so special. And his overall defensive versatility, I mean, being able to excel at the 4, being able to excel at the 5, it's also great. And I know that he has the tools to be even higher on this list, but, like, I didn't see the top 5 impact this year. I didn't see it. And honestly, if I compare him even to Amen Thompson, Alex Caruso, like, even though those guys are perimeter players, I thought they were absolutely game-breaking. I thought they were so disruptive in the playoffs, more so than Mobley, whose impact I don't think you felt in the playoffs quite that same way. Still, I ended up with him above those two guys just because I know that like what he brings me overall in any matchup with the ability to be that great anchor big with great versatility. Like, I'm still going to give him a slight nod over those guys because of that. And because I'm such a believer in him and I've seen the level that he was at in 2024. I know what he can do defensively. I'm going to put him here, but I honestly couldn't put him higher with the level that he defended at over the last few months of the season. And you've got him all the way up at number 2. So, bit of a gap here.
Yeah, I mean, it shocks me that you have him this low. Like, I think that Mobley's one of the first guys I'm taking. Like, if I had, like, random players that were going to get generated that my one defender had to go up and defend against, Mobley's probably the first guy off the board for me. Like, I just think his combination of his ability to check big wings and to protect the rim, I just don't think is really paralleled by anybody else in the league. There's 2 other guys that I think are close, but I don't think they're as destructive as Mobley can be. Like, KD, give me Mobley. Tatum, give me Mobley. Paolo, give me Mobley. Like, I want him. Like, his combination of strength and agility and rim protection and verticality, like, Mobley's one of the first guys I'm taking off the board. Is like, if I'm going to check any archetype, like, I just know what Mobley's bringing me.
Maybe I'm holding my own son to a really high standard because I know that he's capable of such
great
things.
I really think you are.
Maybe. I just didn't see the same defender down the stretch of this year that I saw in 2024. And that's where I'm holding him accountable, I guess. But I still do think, like, I don't know. I have no frame of reference on anybody's ranking of defensive players. I don't think this is really something that many people other than us do, Logan. So I don't know where the consensus is with Mobley right now. But 6 feels good to me, knowing the ability that he has. But I have to ask, do you have him above Chet?
Yes, I do.
Man, I actually really don't think it's a conversation right now. I just think Chet is still bringing such high-level switchability. Now, when you're talking about guarding power players, yes, I think that Mobley is better equipped for those matchups. But Chet is so damn good in his ability to get out, switch on to guards. His length is always underrated in just how much it impacts any offensive player. If it is a guard trying to get to a pull-up jumper or trying to drive past him, his ability to make big-time plays with that 7'6" wingspan. And then guarding the post, I mean, Chet is still really, really effective, even though he is slight. So I would give Mobley an edge, again, in that ability to specifically guard big wings like you were talking about. I think he's unique there. But I think for Chet still being as switchable as he is, having rim protection that to me is just on a different level than Mobley right now, even though Mobley is very good. Like, I legitimately believe Chet Holmgren is one of the greatest rim protectors to ever play this game. He is that insane as a rim protector. The value of that just surpasses Mobley pretty clearly for me. And the consistency of it, the consistency of every single game being that insanely impactful. He's never had a stretch where he was not bringing that same level of insane impact like I think Mobley was defensively down the stretch. Chet's always unbelievable on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Chet also missed a lot of time this year. And, like, I don't
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, I'm not saying that makes a big dent in his case. I'm just saying it's like Mobley played, like, every game this year. Like,
Chet played every game last year.
Yeah.
I don't see the point of that. Because I'm not factoring availability into my list. Are you saying that like affects the motor of it, just like the physical?
A little bit. I mean, I'm saying that like Mobley's out there every single game, like doing his, and like Chet. And I don't want to take anything away from. I've Chet in my top 5. Like Chet is an elite defender as well, but that's not even the difference. I was just saying to like the motor point. The difference to me is the strength aspect. Like it's not the be all end all, and I think Chet is going to climb as he continues in his career. Like, I would be shocked if he wasn't in my top 3 next year, but the strength aspect is a difference to me and why I prefer Mobley and his ability to – I'm just more confident in him guarding the big guys.
Okay, I'll talk about Chet in a little bit because he's still not coming up on my list, but I am just more blown away by what he's doing defensively. And With Mobley, like I do think, again, maybe the increased offensive role is part of the reason for the fact that the defense wasn't as consistent this year. But as I've said, I'm valuing defensive impact. That is what I'm looking at here. And consistency is a part of that. Like there's another guy who I have in my 5 spot who has, maybe the perfect defensive skill set, but I don't think the motor, the effort is as consistent. So the impact isn't as consistent. So I dock him a few spots because that's what's most important to me is your impact defensively.
Okay. What do you make of like the Cavs blowing so many teams out this year? Do you think that had anything to do with it?
No, because I think even when you're talking about like some of the high-stakes matchups and moments, Mobley was not at the level that he was at in 2024 defensively. I think he was obviously a better all-around player because of the offensive improvement. But no, that's where, I gave him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt in the home stretch of this regular season because the Cavs had basically locked up the 1 seed so far out. And I think there's a little bit of validity to that being maybe a factor in the drop-off. But again, and it's not like there's a big playoff sample, and it was really only the Pacers series that was legitimately competitive because that Heat series was such a joke, but still the level wasn't quite the same. And I don't know how much to get into all of that calculus. I feel like this is a good landing spot for me with Mobley, considering what we actually saw from him down the stretch of the year when other guys at the end of the day were just defending at a higher level than he was. In my number 5 spot, Logan, I have another guy who was higher on my list last year, who, when it comes to pure skill set, I think you would make a very good case should be higher on this list. That's Anthony Davis. And the reason that I don't have him higher is, again, effort. And I am more so valuing overall defensive impact than the pure ceiling that you can reach for whatever, a stretch of a few minutes or a game or whatever that short stint may be, because I do think the skill set for Anthony Davis makes a case for being best in the league. And I did consider him the best defender in the league a couple years ago. I don't think any big in basketball excels more at playing every pick and roll coverage at a high level than Anthony Davis when it comes to switching at a high level, being a very good deep drop big, being able to come up and play at the level and move his feet up there and affect pocket passes with his great hands. Like, he's incredible. He moves his feet so well. He does have some of the best hands of any big in basketball. He's got this 7'6" wingspan. He's an elite rim protector. He held opposing players 12% below their average field goal percentage at the rim. He's an elite defensive rebounder. He's a guy who's elite at the 4 and the 5. And like, I always think about 2023, those playoffs, his 2-round run versus Memphis and the Warriors, back-to-back series, that's one of the greatest defensive stretches I've ever seen. He's capable of that. At least he was 2 years ago, but also we're 2 years out from that now, and he hasn't reached that level again, at least not for any extended stretch. And I do think that we've seen, like, he is not among the absolute most impactful regular season defenders. Rudy Gobert is a guy you talk about and you say, yeah, he's a one-man defense. And if he's on your team, you're basically going to be a top 5 defenser sniffing around it. Like, he is that singularly transformative. Last couple years, Lakers' defensive rating was only like a point and a half better with AD on the floor. And they were a very average defense.
If you drop Gobert in LA, you think that defense is better?
I think overall, yeah. I think the overall impact, I think that the elite defensive effort, and again, maybe part of this is AD having such a significant offensive role, but not to be a broken record, that's not what I'm factoring in here. I'm factoring in your defensive impact. And I do think it's important to understand, like, the personnel around Anthony Davis was bad with the Lakers. I think he's the only reason they even were an average defense. But again, I do think that there are even greater regular season defensive anchors. The Lakers also had a lot of issues with transition defense over the last couple of years. I think that AD was a part of the problem there. So when I look at the top 4 guys, like, to me, they're all just honestly pretty clearly more consistently impactful. So AD's ability is so ridiculous that I'm still going to keep him here at number 5. He and Mobley both have like those things of incredible skill sets that could put them in the top 3, but I don't think the level has quite been up to their peak, up to their utmost potential recently, but they're too good to keep out of this range. That's where I land on AD at number 5.
I've got AD in my 3 spot, and it is the rarity of the skill set. I mean, it's his versatility. He's an 84th percentile pick and roll ball handler defender and an 84th percentile pick and roll man defender. He's an 80th percentile isolation defender. You mentioned the rim protection stuff. Like, I just don't think we've seen AD, one, have the, I don't know, I don't know about the personnel around him. I just don't know if we've seen him in the kind of stakes to really be as destructive as he was again during that run. I'm confident that AD can reach that level again if we saw him in that kind of environment. And so I guess my ranking is a little bit reputational based, but I think AD's earned it. And you're talking about skill sets, bro. I really do. It might be the best defensive one, second best on the planet.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's one dude who was just given gifts like
yeah.
I
I mean,
but when it comes to complete all around everything you want from
strength,
a defensive center,
yeah,
AD's basically made in a lab for it. But I am valuing that consistency. I am valuing that overall impact, and so he does take a little bit of a hit on my list. And also, like, you know, the motor stuff matters, man. I mean, we always talk about how a big part of defense is effort, and we can't go out and say that and then just turn it into a theoretical skill set who's got the best tools, because, like, playing hard it's a big part of defense. And
yeah, no,
I would knock AD more there than anybody else in my top 10.
I agree. The only thing I would say to, like, comparing him versus a Chet, too, I do think Chet has less of, again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse because we've said this with a couple of guys, but, like, Chet doesn't have the offensive responsibility as some of the other guys that we're talking about on this list, and so he can exert himself more defensively. Like,
don't care. Defense pilled. It's my top 10 defenders. It's all about defense.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that point, but this is the criteria I'm ranking by. I've got to be consistent
100%,
with it.
100%.
Okay, so who's in your number 5 spot?
I have Draymond Green in my 5 spot.
Oh, let's talk about it. Why is Draymond there? I've got him one spot higher at number 4.
I don't know what to do with Dre. Dre's one of the best defenders ever. I actually think that I've taken maybe Dre's athleticism for granted in terms of how he's, like, aged. Like, the guy is 6'5" and one of the most destructive defenders still on the planet. Like, you were talking about Caruso, bruh. I think Draymond's the most destructive defender. Maybe not in terms of, like, defensive playmaking, but, like, little stuff like picking off passes as an off-ball guy, being a help side rim protector, being the low man defending in the pick and roll. Like, Dre just does stuff that's honestly unbelievable. And I'm talking about some of this schematic versatility with Mobley. I would hear an argument as Draymond is that guy, is the first guy that you're taking in a hypothetical matchup against maybe anybody. Like, Draymond is so switchable. It warps your brain because it doesn't make any sense that a guy built like Dre can be this effective. Like, watching him disrupt Giannis and just take the ball away from him when he rolls to the rim. Watching Dre switch on to these. It doesn't make sense. And still at this old age, Dre is one of the strongest guys every time he steps onto the basketball court. He has got elite hands and IQ. He still can move his feet really well, and he's still a damn good vertical athlete. That's where I say I think I've underestimated Dre as an athlete. Like, watching him at this old age still get up there and contest shots at the rim and do stuff like that, it's unbelievable. The only reason Dre can't be higher is because of his limited impact as a rim protector at this stage in his career. That's why I would hear arguments for anybody above him. But Dre is a one-of-one kind of specimen when it comes to switchability, versatility, impact. I don't think there's ever been a defender in league history quite like Draymond Green, and he's brilliant. He's a genius. So I would be okay if somebody had Dre in, like, their top 3, or if he was number 2 or something like that. Like, Dre is still that damn good. But I've got him here in 5. He has gotten higher. I was way too low on Dre last year when we did this rankings. This feels a little bit better here in the 5 spot. But I would hear an argument for him higher if one was made.
Where did you have Dre last year?
I had him at 10. I couldn't believe I had him that low.
It's okay, man. I forgive you. I do have Dre just one spot higher. I really, really am considering him for the number 3 spot. He's so damn good. I mean, he and Gobert both, right? They're the best defenders of the last decade. They're the top 2. You know, Kawhi has his peak when you're talking about 2014, 2015, that range, 2016. But these are the 2 guys who just consistently, year after year, have delivered that sort of all-time value defensively and into their mid-30s. Like, no, they're not doing it at the same level, but I still have them both as top 4 defenders on the planet. It's crazy. I do think that Draymond is the smartest defender in basketball still. I do think he's still the most versatile defender in basketball. He is an elite man defender on wings, on big forwards. I do think that he's lost a little bit of switchability when it comes to being able to deal with quicker players, right? He's just lost a little bit of athleticism. Naturally, he's 35 years old now. But if you look at the job that he did on like a Şengün in the playoffs, where, yes, he's conceding a lot of size, but very few players in the history of the game are better equipped to counter that with positioning, strength, just the fucking consistent energy that they play with defensively. And Şengün just couldn't move him. Like, it was a physical ass battle, and he just kept forcing Şengün to settle for these sort of 12, 14 foot shots that were not efficient for him. Şengün had a true shooting percentage of 42.8 when guarded by Draymond. So just like that inability to move him out of the post is so valuable. He allowed just 0.78 points per isolation and post-up combined overall this year. That is an elite number. And then, of course, he's a genius team defender. Like, his ability to fly around on the back end, unbelievable anticipation. I don't know if anybody makes up for more mistakes around them or just makes more perfect rotations than Draymond Green. And he's got the 7'2" wingspan that is so freakish. And, like, no, he is not the sort of rim-protecting force that he was 7-8 years ago. Like, he's just absolutely not. But he's still quite good there. I mean, he holds opposing players 9% below their average field goal percentage at the rim. He is still an impactful interior defender and secondary rim protector. Posted his highest steal rate in a few years this year. And like, the defensive on-off metrics with him are always elite. The impact stuff, so transformative. And I think the job that he was doing, making the Warriors a good defense before they added Jimmy Butler, was so impressive because he was like the only clear plus defender on that whole team. And then once they did add Jimmy, once they gave him another clear positive defender, they were the best defense in basketball down the stretch of the regular season for 20-something games. So the only knock on Draymond is just like that little bit of a step back from his peak athletically, in terms of speed, in terms of rim protection. But I honestly thought he should have been Defensive Player of the Year this year. I mean, if you remember, he was my pick because I did think that he surpassed Mobley down the stretch. He was just at this incredibly high level where Mobley did take a little bit of a step back. And I thought he should have been Defensive Player of the Year in 2023. So, yes, he's number 4 on my list. But, I mean, he's the guy who I would have argued as Defensive Player of the Year. And the guy I did argue as Defensive Player of the Year for 2 of the last 3 seasons. So, he's still at an incredible level. I do think it'll be a shame that he's probably going to end up as yet another one of these all-time great defenders who's only got 1 Defensive Player of the Year award. I mean, we talked about this with David Robinson, talked about this, Kevin Garnett only 1 time, Tim Duncan never Defensive Player of the Year. There's some other all-time great. Scottie Pippen never won a Defensive Player of the Year, and he's not a big, so maybe he doesn't have those gaudy like stock numbers, and it makes a little bit more sense. He was also playing in a stacked defensive era, but there's just a lot of guys who I think some of the greatest defenders we've ever seen are not fully appreciated by Defensive Player of the Year tallies. But Draymond probably going to end up being one of those guys because I think he is probably the 5th best defender we've ever seen in the history of this sport. So still very, very high on him. A little bit higher than you. Him versus Gobert is really tricky, man.
It is.
Because I'm taking peak Draymond over peak Rudy for sure, just because the versatility is so insane. I think that Rudy is just a little bit closer to his peak level than Draymond is to his peak level. But I mean, we are absolutely fucking nitpicking at this point, man. These margins are razor thin. So I had Gobert in my 3 spot. You, Logan, have Anthony Davis in your 3 spot.
Correct.
That means you have Chet Holmgren in your 4 spot, if my math is correct.
I do.
So why is that?
I mean, Chet, I think, is the best rim protector on the planet nowadays. Still really switchable, too. Like, the guy's super mobile. He's freakish in terms of agility for him, Mobley, Wemby. It doesn't make sense that big guys are that fluid and can move like that. Like, and Chet's even better. Like, Chet's recovery ability under the rim, like, and you see this ability, too, with guards that get beat out of the pick and roll, but with Chet, it's even more amazing. Like, the fact that he can be the low man defending in a pick and roll, and the ball handler can kick it to the roll guy, and Chet is probably 4 feet, 5 feet off the guy, and then can just immediately recover and be there to block the shot. It's almost like Chet is in 2 places at once sometimes when he's defending out of the pick and roll. Like, it warps your brain. Like Chet does stuff where you just kind of sit there and are in absolute awe. 18% is the number that he held players below their field goal percentage at the rim last season, which I think is the highest number I've ever seen. I mean, have you ever seen a number higher than that, Carson?
Not from an actual volume rim protector. Like
yeah.
him. No, it's
like if you get, sometimes you'll get some
unbelievable.
anomalies like 1 game or 2 game
Like
sample size.
Like peak Giannis might have had a number that high because he had some crazy numbers, but even he was in a secondary rim protector role, right? Like Chet is defending so many shots at the rim a game. I've never seen a number that high from somebody who defends that many shots at the rim.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And Chet is very switchable for a guy his size. Like you mentioned it earlier, like his length is disruptive on smaller players, just period, that are going to struggle to get their shot off against him. He's so good at moving his feet and staying with guys. Really, the only reason why Chet isn't higher on my list is the strength aspect of his game, where ironically, I'm making this argument. I do kind of like Gobert's switchability. I think Chet's lack of strength actually gets overblown. I am holding it against him. But anytime I have a conversation with somebody about Chet, normally the first thing that they say is, one, if they're talking about him offensively, it's, oh, he had a shit playoff run. But two, moreover, it's, wow, that guy is skinny, and he's going to get bodied by these big bodies. And it really just isn't the case. Like, Chet can hold his own against some of these bigger players. It does get overblown. Ultimately, it is the reason why he isn't higher on my list, because I think AD and Mobley are more well-equipped to deal with some of those matchups. But I do think it gets overblown, where Chet can hold his own and is capable, and his size mitigates some of those issues entirely. Like, it doesn't wipe it away, like, against a Jokic or somebody like that, like one of the strongest players in the game or something like that. But Chet's super long. So, I mean, you're going to struggle against him anyway. So,
yeah,
I think Chet, it's inevitable that he's going to crack the top 3 here. I think Chet, Mobley, and Wemby is just ridiculous as like our defenders of the next era. It is ridiculous.
And Amen. We got to include Amen in that Mount Rushmore now, because those have been the big 3 ever since they were prospects. But Amen has entered, I mean, I don't know if he can ever reach their level of impact, but he's the next guy.
Well, in terms of doing outlier, like freakish shit game to game, that's a big 5. Like that's the crew right there. And so I think Chet's elite. It really is just the strength component that I would prefer AD or Mobley, like if I was starting out. But Chet's a beast, and I think Chet is inevitably going to reach top 3 on this list. But for you, he's already here, huh?
Yeah, he's number 2. And like I said earlier, I mean, I knew who my top 2 were going to be. I think that Chet just had one of the most impressive defensive postseasons that we've seen in the NBA in a long time. I would go as far as to say that he is a near perfect defender. I think that he is the best pure rim contester in basketball. I mean, you mentioned that number. It's unthinkable how ridiculously dominant he was as a rim protector, how ridiculously difficult it was to score when you tried Chet Holmgren at the rim harder, significantly, than any other player in basketball if you look at those numbers. And he's got all the traits. 7'1", 7'6" wingspan. Those are A-plus physical tools. Literally perfect verticality. Best timing of any shot blocker in basketball. Just incredible overall technique, phenomenal defensive IQ and anticipation. He's a master of always contesting, totally upright with 2 hands, just maximizing his chances of getting a great contest, always in position. And like, it's not just the insane rim field goal percentage allowed stat. Like, the guy also just averages 3 blocks per 36 minutes. So in terms of productivity as a shot blocker, he's only trailing Wemby. And then when it comes to the technique, the effectiveness as an overall rim defender, he had the best season of anybody this year. And then he's also super switchable. This is why I talk about how much I love Chet as a prospect so much. I just can't shut up about it with him and Mobley both. But like, I couldn't believe what I was watching with these guys, man. As collegiate talents, the combination of mobility and elite rim protection, and God has it translated, his ability. And he's a legitimate 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan. That's why I clarify with Mobley, like, there is an extra couple inches of height. There is an extra couple inches of length with Chet. And he has this outlier quickness. He has such fluid hips. He has such crazy change in direction for being that massive. And then that length contesting jumpers is so effective. He can make so many recovery plays. You look at, like, some of the matchups he had to take on, just certain possessions off switches in these playoffs, but defending Jamal Murray so well, defending Tyrese Halliburton so well, which was legitimately important because their ability to throw in that wrinkle of actually switching everything, that was something that nobody else was able to do with any success against Hallie and the Pacers. He was too shifty for the other bigs who they tried it against. He cooked Brook Lopez. He cooked Jared Allen. And Chet was actually really effective guarding him. Overall, he allowed 0.73 points per isolation and post-up combined this year. So just in terms of one-on-one defense, that's an 87th percentile number in isolation, 90th percentile post-up number. That is insane. That number was even better in the playoffs. It was 0.64. So if you try him at the rim, there's nobody better. As a one-on-one defender, like those are the best numbers of anybody who we're going to talk about today. So I do look at Mobley and I look at AD, and like those are a couple other guys who have that combination of awesome switchability and awesome rim protection, which Chet also has. But Chet is taking the rim protection like totally up a level at this point. He is that ridiculous when it comes to defending at the basket, protecting the rim, and he's so versatile. He's great in the roamer role at the 4, but the Thunder post their best defensive results when they have him at the 5, when they maximize the speed around him. They're the fastest defense I've ever seen with their personnel with Chet at the 5. They have a 104 defensive rating in the minutes with Chet on, Hartenstein off. So the best defense in basketball is at their absolute best in that combination. And another reason that I have Chet higher this year than I did last year, he significantly improved as a defensive rebounder. And that's really significant because that was probably his biggest limitation as a rookie. You can talk about the strength, but also just the fact that he couldn't really anchor the glass as a 5. And they were looking for who could complement him. Is it a big power forward? Is it a center? Hartenstein still fills a valuable role for OKC, but Chet has shown an ability to anchor the glass at center. He averaged 8.5 defensive rebounds per 36 minutes this year. That is a better number than Rudy Gobert. That is a better number than Evan Mobley. Like, that is a really solid number, and that held up in the playoffs. So that's a meaningful improvement where now you feel like you check every box defensively with Chet at the 5. I mean, unrivaled speed, unrivaled rim protection, unrivaled ability to cause turnovers, and you can hang in there on the glass where they were a really bad rebounding team with Chet at the 5 when he was a rookie. That matters. And, like, my only knock on his defense would be the post defense and the strength aspect specifically. Like you said, I mean, I'll echo what you said. Like, it is absolutely overblown. This guy was a 90th percentile post defender this year, and yet that's my one criticism of him. Like, his length is so ridiculous that he is still a really good post defender. He is so difficult to score over, but the truly elite strength guys can find success against him. You look at the Jokic matchup in the playoffs, and Chet guarding him was not going to be tenable. Like when they did try that, and Chet has found some success in that matchup, right? I mean, just still the length is so impactful, but the strength difference was too significant, and so they had to obviously go other routes, and luckily they have the defensive personnel to do so. But also, even though the issues there for him were more pronounced, like I talk about this with Bam too, right? How, you know, Jokic really ate his lunch in those finals. Like, this is Nikola Jokic who we're talking about. And so there's no defensive big who on an island has been able to really offer resistance. Mm-hmm. Ivica Zubac has done the best job of anybody ever, and we're not talking about him today. But honestly, like that one limitation, that's the reason that Chet isn't number 1 on my list. Because outside of that, I think that he's a more complete defender than the guy who I do have as number 1. I think he's absolutely outstanding. He
is. And just for some perspective on some of the matchups that you're talking about. Against Jokic this season, Jokic averaged 1.14 points per shot against Chet. Against a guy like Gobert, he averaged 1.25 points per shot. But against a guy like Big Zoo, Holmgren held him to 0.67. So I don't think it's like it's not a catch-all. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, you put a big body on Chet in the post and then we're immediately going to score. No,
not at all. It's like, okay, if we put a 300-pound dude who also has the greatest paint touch we've ever seen and masterful footwork, that's going to be a problem
against the greatest offensive player ever, he might get cooked. Yeah.
And he does. To be fair, though, again, holding him up to the standard of the other elite defenders, I think that is specifically more of a problem for Chet, but it is a problem for everybody. And at everything else, like I said, I mean, I think he makes a strong case for being number one. The combination of great switchability with absolutely all-time rim protection, which is what it is. Like, it's insane, man. You could hardly draw up a better defender in a lab than Chet Holmgren. In fact, if you added 15 pounds of muscle to Chet Holmgren, he'd be the perfect defender. But for now, there's a guy who was built in a lab, and he does have the advantage, and he is in the number one spot for both of us, Logan. It's official. Victor Wembanyama is the best defender in the NBA. How has he grabbed that title?
Soon to be best player in the NBA? Question mark.
Some point. I don't know how soon, but someday. I'd bet my life
Wemby
on that.
Would have been defensive player of the year had he stayed healthy. I'm convinced. I've used
either him or Chet. It was going to be one of the two of them because Wemby was going to have obviously crazy impact numbers, the raw stock totals. Chet was going to have also insane impact in stock production and just being clearly the best defender on one of the greatest defenses ever. So they were going to be the two who made the cases, and then unfortunately they both dropped out because of health and injuries.
Mm-hmm. I think he would have probably won it. I've used the word transcendent a couple of times during this episode, but it really does apply to Wemby, especially when we're talking about overall rim protection and deterrence. He held players 13.5% below their average at the rim this last season. And do what you will with these numbers, it is a staggering on-off. A lot of this does have to do with the fact that the Spurs have pretty piss-poor defensive personnel, but Wemby improved the Spurs' defense by 9.5 points from 121.6 without Wemby to a defensive rating of 112.1. That's by far the biggest swing of any player we have talked about today on this episode. And, like, you look at guys with other really good on-off numbers. Gobert improves the Wolves by 5.3. Caruso improves OKC by 4.4. Triple J improved the Grizzlies' defense by 5 points. 9.5 is unheard of. I mean, that is, what is that, man, like peak Draymond? Like, that is, I don't know if anybody's ever touched a number like that just defensively. Like, that is absurd. And Wemby just, we've said it, but I mean, Wemby literally just has a one-of-one build and physical traits that make him the best defender on the planet. Like, he can just make plays that nobody else on the planet can. He can contest shots that nobody else could. The guy's a 96th percentile roll man defender. He's an 83rd percentile post defender. Like, if you were going to make the only gripe I would say about Wemby is he doesn't have the elite switchability of some of these other guys, but it really is mitigated by the fact that he is freakish in terms of size. And if he gets that up, like, it's not like he has a ton of trouble there. Like, he can gamble more and play off of shooters. I'd say with, like, quicker guys with good change in pace and stuff like that, they can affect him. But, like, he's still so damn long and so big. You're not getting anything easy against Wemby. And so I think about it, like, if I was going to start a defense with one player today, Wemby's my guy. I'm not really thinking about it too hard. I think the first full season that we get from this season on, I think he is a shoo-in to win Defensive Player of the Year. The stock totals are unreal, and they could improve. Like Amen Thompson, like Wemby is a one-of-one. There's nothing quite like him, and nobody quite like him has ever existed in basketball history, man. He's a freak. He's an alien, and I don't really see this title changing anytime soon. He might have this for the next 20 years.
Whoa, another insane Logan Wemby take.
I'm just gonna keep
from 35
going.
points per game.
Every single time we talk about
years.
Next time, maybe I'll say he'll be putting up Wilt stat lines, man.
I'm
50,
ready for anything at this
20 and 10.
You just hit him with the Amen Thompson comp. That's how you know he's really made it. It doesn't get any better than that. Wemby's number one on my list too. And yeah, I think that you said it. This is right now the best argument that anybody is going to have against him for a while, in my opinion. Because, like, you could still argue a Chet, a Draymond, a Gobert. I would hear these points out, but it is Wemby at this point, and I just think he has more room for growth and improvement, and that's what is endlessly terrifying about him as a basketball player overall. But he's probably closer to his defensive ceiling than his offensive ceiling, and he's already the best defender on the planet, in my opinion. You mentioned the impact stuff, the 9+ point on-off swing defensively, and there's always some noise with on-off stuff, especially defensively. And so you have to be cautious of, like, not making that the be-all, end-all. But when back-to-back years a guy has the single best defensive on-off swing in the sport, it's certainly something worth taking note of, and that's what Victor Wembanyama has. And when that totally aligns with the eye test, that's when you really put stock into it. I think that context is important with basically all defensive metrics. Like, it's just not nearly as well captured by the box score, or really by any of the data that we have. Like, offense is just easier to capture with numbers, but that speaks to the fact that, like, they've put bad defensive personnel around Wemby, and they collapse when he's off the floor. And yet when he's on the floor, they play like a top quarter defense, like, consistently. His size and length just impact the game in basically every way, in ways that nobody else can replicate, just because they were not given the same gifts of God. They weren't made 7'4" with an 8-foot wingspan. Like, he is the biggest deterrent in the sport around the rim. When people do try him at the rim, he holds them more than 13% below their average field goal percentage, and he blocks 3.8 shots per game. It's just ridiculous. The range defensively is absurd in terms of his ability to just take up so much space. Like, when you think about a guy who is playing perfect drop coverage, where you're like, okay, I don't feel like I have enough space for the floater, but I also don't feel like I can get the lob over top to the roll man. Like, Victor Wembanyama is the epitome of putting you in that predicament, because he is just so massive. No, he doesn't have like the technical perfection as a drop defender of a Rudy Gobert yet, but he's got physical tools like nobody else. He's also pretty clearly the best defensive rebounder on this list. Like, I think that's worth noting, just how monstrous he is there. He's an elite post defender already, obviously largely as a product of his just insane length and size, but also he's added strength. And that is not to say that he is like untouchable as a post defender, but he forces you to adjust so significantly in your approach, because his length is just that significant. You get to shots that you think should be there, that normally are there, and they're just not against Victor Wembanyama. And he's got legitimately good hands on top of that. He forces steals at a good rate for a big. So obviously the potential is there for this guy to be one of the greatest defenders of all time, and very possibly the greatest defender of the modern era. That being said, I do think he can still get even smarter defensively. That's an area where, like, I do think if you're looking at a peer of his, I think that Chet's defensive processing, his defensive IQ, I think he's got a leg up on Wemby for now. But Wemby's also, like, very smart for his age. It's very impressive. And I think that that still can and will get better. And I think it got better this year. And the other, like, only criticism you could make is, as you said, he doesn't have that elite switchability, schematic versatility, but he can hold his own off of switches, because for a 7'4" guy, he's the most mobile, he's the most agile we've ever seen. It's not even close. There's just a ceiling on what's possible at that size in terms of agility, moving out in space. He's the best that he possibly could be, but he's not a Chet or a Mobley. But as you mentioned, the length factor of it all does make up for some of that, just with his ability to erase so much ground with closeouts, contests. So I just think if you look at the raw impact of what he's doing as an interior defender right now in all these areas, rim protection, rebounding, post defense, I don't think anybody's matching that overall. I think that that's the reason that this guy is putting up defensive impact numbers that nobody else is able to do, taking this really bad defensive supporting cast and making them good when he's on the floor defensively. Like, that's Victor Wembanyama. That's what happens when you're just a one-of-a-kind defensive force, and you were given one-of-a-kind defensive gifts in the history of this game.
Over or under 4.5 stocks per game next season?
Wow, I thought you were going to say 4.5 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and I was going to say, what a great line. I would take the over on the Defensive Player of the Year question that I've just posed to myself.
Man, should I bump it up to 5, bro? 5
I don't know.
stocks per game.
He was at 5 this year, right?
Just under, yeah.
The thing is, I don't think Wemby's stocks are just going to keep going up and up and up. Like, I think
because people are just going to stop testing him.
I think that there's an aspect of that. I think there's an aspect of, like, not necessarily being as aggressive, chasing every block, staying on your feet a little bit more, right? Just maximizing deterrence, basically.
You would take over 4.5 depoys.
Yes, I think he'll have the most ever.
Sick.
Yeah. I mean, look, dude, the guy in year 2 was the prohibitive favorite to win the award before the blood clots. Year 2. So he's 21 years old. It's a lot of runway left of him being the best defender on the planet. I wouldn't say 20 years like you, but over the next decade, maybe 12 years, he should be the best defender. And even in a loaded era with Chet, with Mobley, with Amen Thompson, with Asar Thompson, Cooper Flagg coming into the fold now. Let's not forget about Toumani Camara, Logan. What a stud he is. A lot of great defenders, but Wemby's going to go into probably basically every year as the favorite. And, you know, Chet will get his one in there somewhere. Mobley's gotten his one. This is how it goes. But it's not uncommon for dudes to monopolize the Defensive Player of Year award for a stretch, right? I mean, Ben Wallace won 4 in 5 years. Dwight Howard dominated for a stretch. Dikembe's were a little bit more spread out, but he won 3 in 4 years. So, like, that can happen. And I think Wemby's got probably the best chance of anybody ever to do it for an extended stretch. Defense, man. It's fun. It's fun to talk about defense. Does it get talked about enough? Probably not. And I had a joyful time talking about it with you, Logan. Yes?
I just want to get 20 guys on this list, man.
I know. Well, you want to get 20 guys everywhere you can at any possible
Damn!
moment. I mean, you want to get 20 more years out of Victor Wembanyama.
Yes!
We'll see if it's possible. Yeah, I agree. I would have loved to get a few more guys on this list, but at the end of the day, there just wasn't space for Herb Jones at the party. Which really, there's no party that I want to go to that doesn't have space for Herb Jones.
For real, bro.
That's just how it played out this time. We appreciate you guys as always. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, the good news is there's so much more Nerd Sesh content. You can find all of our full episodes across our YouTube channel, NBA, ranking current shit, ranking historical shit, doing trivia with our friends, and of course, all of our NFL season preview content is now out. And on Friday, we will have a reaction to actual NFL football, and we will have all of our predictions for week 1. I kind of can't wait, Logan. It's surreal how freaking excited I am. I'm unbelievably excited for NFL season to start. The only crazy thing is the U.S. Open men's final is going to be Sunday, too. Same day as NFL kickoff. What if Novak Djokovic is playing for his 25th Grand Slam at 38 years old?
You're going to miss Bills Ravens. Got to get
No, it's going to be
Bills
earlier in the
Ravens.
day. No, the tennis is going to be earlier. I think it's at like 1 Eastern, so it's the same time as, or no, it's 2 Eastern. But I don't think I can watch. I have to watch the NFL, Logan. I have to be glued to 8 screens at a time so I can get off my freaking takes.
Hey, real quick,
It's a
get
good problem to
something
have, I
off my
guess.
chest, too.
Oh, my God. What is this? Is this the moment I've been waiting for? Are you going to do it?
I'm not proposing.
When did you get
Not
a ring?
Today. Not today.
Oh.
Fuck you, ESPN, for taking Red Zone from us, you assholes. Yeah. That's what I got to say.
God.
They took
my
commercial-free football from us, Carson.
Hey, the worldwide leader, you better wake the fuck up. Because
Yeah.
a big dog just barked. He barked right in your face. And let me tell you something. I'm about to let him out of the doghouse.
I'm about to bite
Camden.
somebody.
Logan Camden, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm
Spike,
feeling
I call you.
feral.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff about that. I mean, that sucks. I don't know. I am not
No,
aware of the
ESPN just
inside
has
business.
to take...
SVP said it's
ESPN
not their fault that it has commercials now, but I agree. It sucks that Red Zone has commercials. Whoever's
ESPN
responsible
just
for it,
has
you're
to take
greedy. You're greedy, and I
everything-
don't like you. I don't like you.
everything we love and ruin it.
Logan Camden, ladies and gentlemen. And you know who they let slip through the cracks? Us. No, I was actually going to say Pablo Torre because he was with ESPN.
Oh, God.
He's doing great work without
He's cooking.
them. The worldwide leader, Logan, they couldn't handle us. They couldn't handle all that talk about gooning and edging and men being in love at the end of the day. They're not ready for it.
They're not.
They'd say, hold on a second. 2 seconds ago, these guys were talking about the NBA. Why are they now talking about Logan Camden's pornography preferences? How did we get there?
That's what you
That's
get here.
life, man.
That's what you get here at Nerd Sesh, man.
It's freaking life. This isn't some echo chamber, right? I mean, this is a place where we diversify our thoughts. We challenge ourselves. We reset norms. We challenge expectations. And ultimately, we push the discourse further to a place where, yes, we're talking about gooning. Yes, we're talking about the clanker revolution. Talking about
Bro,
all
did
that
you
stuff. And
did you
sports.
see NBA games are going to be on like 6 different streaming services this year too?
Yeah, Peacock. You got to have Peacock to watch the NBA.
Yeah, bro, you want to
Sucks.
drop 2 bands if you want to watch NFL and NBA games this year, man. It's horseshit. That's what I
You
think
know,
it is.
Logan, you're sort of putting me down at the end of the pod here because I was already feeling a bit pessimistic earlier. I was thinking about some AI stuff, and I got to a real dark place in my head, and I started getting very scared, and the walls started closing in on me, and I was writing all over the walls, and I was screaming out, "Somebody help me! Somebody help me!" And then for a moment, just for a moment, I thought that I saw Colin Farrell emerge, and he was covered in butter. And he was dressed like the Buddha. I don't know what's up with that. But anyways, I didn't need more of this negativity about the state of the world and where things are headed.
Hey, just keep boning the fans, man. They don't care about us, man.
Well, we care about you guys here at Nerd Sesh, okay? We want to make sure you guys are always treated to our most buttery of content, our sweetest takes, our sweetest trivia, our sweetest analysis. It's all right here. So on that note, you know where to find us. Listen to the show across all audio platforms if you want. You don't have to. I really promise you don't. And you can follow us across social, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. And you can join our Discord if you want to chat with the gang and be part of our community there. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Colin Farrell, covered in butter.
Oh my God, and this was Nerd Sesh.